The world has suddenly gone haywire. Everyone's lost their minds, tearing each other apart and devouring one another to steal their strength. The only one left with his sanity intact is our main character. But in a world that's gone completely insane like this, is keeping your sanity actually a good thing? At the art department's get-together, the screeching of the art director, Zhang Yanfei, was enough to burst anyone's eardrums. Why isn't this wine chilled? And what about this watermelon? It's still got the seeds in it. It's such a rare gathering and you can't even get this right? Why don't you just go die? The person getting yelled at was Wu Jingjing, the department assistant. Normally, an underling getting chewed out like that would just have to swallow their pride and take it. But who would have guessed? Jingjing isn't one to mess with. She fired right back. If you want to eat it, eat it. If not, get lost. You're making such a fuss over nothing. Why don't you go die yourself? And just like that, fueled by the sickness, the two of them started tearing into each other. Just as they were about to go for each other's throats, Chang Mo, the concept artist, stepped in to smooth things over. Guys, calm down, Director Zhang. I'll go get you some new wine and watermelon. Jing, I'll apologize to the director on your behalf. Everyone, let's just all take a breath. But who could have expected what happened next? Zhang Yanfei grabbed a wine bottle and smashed it right over Chang Mo's head. The bottle shattered, and the room fell into a terrifying silence. You could only hear Yanfei's heavy, ragged breathing. After a moment, his rage seemed to evaporate, and his attitude flipped in the blink of an eye. Oh my God, what have I done? Little Chang, are you all right? I'm so sorry, Yanfei sobbed, clinging to Chang Mo. Meanwhile, Chang Mo remained incredibly calm. It's okay, just everyone stay calm and it'll be fine. What do you mean it's okay, you idiot? Get to the hospital now. Jing, standing to the side, said anxiously. I'm really okay. Besides, this is a rare get-together for the whole team. Everyone, just enjoy yourselves. Thanks to Chang Mo's insistence, the gathering continued. No one paid him any mind anymore. Chang Mo stood in the corner using a handkerchief to wipe the blood from his forehead. Suddenly, a young woman appeared behind him. His colleague, Yahello, who was often sent to training with him. You're really just going to let that slide? You've got a lot of patience, I'll give you that. Yahello sighed. I don't have a choice. In this entire department, I'm probably the only one who's still halfway normal. Besides, didn't you see it clearly too? The reason they've become so volatile. The 50-year-old tumor. It was the first time Chang Mo had ever seen a tumor like that. It had grown on his mother's head. At first, Chang Mo thought it was just a hallucination brought on by the trauma of his father's death. But from that point on, Chang Mo noticed his mother started losing her temper constantly. As she got angrier, the tumor on her head grew larger. And as it grew, her rage became even more terrifying. Only much later did Chang Mo realize that once that tumor reached a certain size, it would explode, and the person's head would explode along with it. From that day on, he vowed never to get angry about anything ever again. Chang Mo believed this was the truth behind the emotional sickness. Only by doing this could he avoid catching the disease himself. In a flash, he saw Zhang Yanfei bickering loudly with someone else. Chang Mo cursed under his breath, a bunch of psychos. Plus, the tumor on Yanfei's head is about to blow. After a moment of thought, he told Yahello, I guess I'd better go talk him down. I thought you didn't care if they lived or died. I don't really, but it'll be a huge headache if someone dies here. As soon as Chang Mo finished, a loud explosion rang out. Zhang Yanfei's head had shattered along with the tumor, but unlike his mother before, he didn't just collapse. Instead, a massive fire erupted right where the tumor had burst. Director Zhang had completely transformed into a monster, and the young man he'd been arguing with was finished off in one strike. Seeing this, the entire staff started screaming in terror. Director Zhang is killing people. He's lost his mind. Run! Chang Mo stood rooted to the spot. A million questions flooded his mind, but the biggest one was, why did Yanfei turn into a monster after the tumor burst, while his mother just died? Yahello saw him dazed and grabbed his hand to run, explaining as they went that once the tumor breaks, those possessed by it don't actually die. They molt into an emotional monster. Most people end up completely controlled by their own emotional monster, and furthermore, they can wield the supernatural power that the monster provides, letting them vent their rage to their heart's content, just like old man Zhang right now. If that's the case, then why did my mother die? Chang Mo asked. Don't rush. It's probably almost time. No sooner had Yahello finished speaking than Zhang Yanfei let out a painful roar. Then the flames on his head suddenly flickered out, and his heavy body slumped to the floor. Only then did the employees stop running. They gathered around, whispering to each other, "Hey, did you see that? The director's head just blew up and then the fire went out." "Wait, they didn't see it?" Changmo asked. "Exactly." Yerlai replied, "Normal people can't see it, whether it's the director turning into an emotional monster or the monster eating his head. They can't see any of it. This is the very reason behind your mother's death. Just like President Zhang, she turned into an emotional monster and was then controlled by her own manifestation. In the end, she became food for another emotional monster." After Thuong Mak fell silent for a moment, Depley added, "In other words, she became food for those who can control these monsters. Your own emotions. An emotional monster shares a deep bond with its host. You can easily find him. That's right, it's him. Ordinary people can't see it, but both Depley and Thuong Mak could observe it clearly. It came from the spot where the flames had just consumed Zhang Yanfei. This man used to be Thuong Mak's neighbor, but now he's become a big shot. To the public, he's just the vice president of the international corporation Long Chu, but in the shadows, he's a vessel capable of controlling his own emotional monster. This guy intentionally spreads a rage virus, causing others to lose control of their emotions and become infected. Once they transform into an emotional monster, he strikes to hunt them down and absorb their power. From the very beginning, you both walked right into his hunting ground. Deeply is a sharp one, too, and she's already uncovered a few clues. Back then, the first person this scumbag hunted was your mother, Thuong Mak. The only reason she lost control was because she'd been infected by his rage virus. Her death happened because he commanded his own monster to devour her. Your family's downfall and the loss of your loved ones, it was all because of this man. Jipley's words burrowed deep into Thuong Mak's mind. After a long pause, he asked, "So, only those who turn into emotional monsters are his targets?" "That's right, because he wants to seize their power." "Exactly." "Well, I can't be infected, and I definitely can't turn into an emotional monster. Then I couldn't possibly be his prey." With that, Thuong Mak turned to leave. "You're just going to walk away like that? Aren't you going to take revenge?" "He's the one who took your mother's life," Jeepley asked in a low voice. "He has supernatural powers. He can take a life without even blinking. I'm not planning on throwing my life away, and besides, this is all just your side of the story." I was incredibly calm, but why did he have the feeling that he wasn't sick? This time, Deeply's words hit home, forcing Thuong Mak to stop in his tracks. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're the one who's the most severely ill of all. Lucha's prey has been you from the very start. What he wants most is for you to become an emotional deviant, and the one he wants to devour most is you." As soon as Deeply finished speaking, a hand rested on his shoulder. Lucha had arrived, though no one knew exactly when. "Jo Tunin, long time no see, how have you been?" "My, look how much you've grown," Lucha said with feigned intimacy. "Sorry, you've got the wrong person." Thuong Mak replied coldly, causing the other man to burst into laughter. "You sure love to joke. Let's sit down and have a nice little chat. And even though it might be a bit forward of me, could I ask you for a favor? Could you try getting a little angry?" With that, Lucha kicked Thuong Mak hard in the stomach, sending him sprawling to the ground. The scene quickly drew the eyes of his colleagues. A mix of gossip and outrage erupted from all sides. "What the hell? What's going on? President Zhang just had an accident, and now this guy comes here to cause trouble? He just hit young Thuong. Let's beat him to death." Jiplai rushed to help Thuong Mak up, and even though others were indignant on his behalf, he remained remarkably calm. Thuong Mak said he was fine. There wasn't a single flicker of anger on his face. Lucha clicked his tongue at the sight. "Tisk, tisk. Nothing makes you snap, huh? You really don't care about yourself, do you?" He left the sentence hanging. Instead, Lucha suddenly snapped his fingers, and everyone around him was swallowed by flames. It immediately threw the banquet hall into chaos. That was what Lucha had intentionally done to provoke Thuong Mak. If your colleagues get hurt, do you feel angry now? After all, they've always treated you pretty well, haven't they? Don't you think so? Thuong Mak fell into deep thought. Lucha said, "No, wrong. Your colleagues really did treat you well." Memories of their kindness kept flashing through his mind, yet Thuong Mak stood rooted to the spot. Even until everyone Lucha had set on fire was reduced to ash, he didn't move a muscle. Everything had turned to dust. And yet he remained completely unmoved. How could anyone truly be that patient? "But you can't fool me. The bundle of rage inside you has grown quite a bit, hasn't it?" Lucha wore a wicked grin. thinking to himself, "No rush. Take it slow. I haven't even told this brat that it was me who took his mother's life. I want to see just how long he can hold it all in." Thuong Mak remained silent, but underneath, his heart was in turmoil. He knew perfectly well he wasn't as calm as he looked. His colleagues were constantly having outbursts. Strangers would deliberately provoke him, making him want to explode at any moment, even wanting to tear them to shreds. But Thuong Mak never did it. People's emotional struggles and tempers weren't always intentional. The sorrow and regret they felt after the rage faded always brought those past memories to his mind. Memories of his mother's tear-streaked face. Every time she finished venting her anger, she would burst into tears, losing her grip on reality, drowned in emotion, leaving only regret in the end. That is why for so long, Thuong Mak had used reason to restrain himself. Reason? He had to keep his reason. He had always thought that way and lived by that motto. But now, looking at Liu Jia and that cruel burning flame before him, Thuong Mak asked himself, did he really have to keep his reason anymore? Turning his negativity into a raging monster and using that power to tear Liu Jia apart to avenge his mother, to avenge everyone, wouldn't that be better? Yet he truly didn't understand. He was already so furious right now. Why hadn't he transformed yet? Upon hearing Thuong Mak mutter these words, Jiplai's face went pale. "If you transform, you'll be killed," she warned. "If I don't transform, won't I get killed anyway?" "Might as well go crazy and gamble my life," Thuong Mak replied. Deeply looked at him with what seemed like pity, something he found very hard to accept. But currently he was completely unable to transform. "Why?" Thuong Mak asked again. Clearly he had been talking to Deeply this whole time, but in Liu Jia's eyes, Thuong Mak had just been mumbling to himself. It was as if Deeply were someone he had imagined. Regardless, Liu Jia's patience had reached its limit. With that thought, Liu Jia lunged toward Thuong Mak, intending to teach him a lesson. But Liu Jia's muttering reached Thuong Mak's ears, and he was first surprised. Then, he was shocked and horrified. Thuong Mak immediately turned to stare at Deeply. By now, her expression had shifted, a dangerous smile appearing on her beautiful face. "Finally noticed, have you? All right, I'll stop teasing you. Actually, from the very beginning, you were the only one who could see me." Seeing Deeply's expression change made Thuong Mak even more stunned. As for why he couldn't transform right now, Deeply continued, "It's because the moment you saw me, you were infected by me and became an emotional monster. An emotional monster named Reason." This was the first time Liu Jia had seen Thuong Mak's emotional monster. But looking at the chains binding it and that black hole-like face, I was completely confused. He had no idea what kind of emotional monster that was. As for Thuong Mak, he was also seeing his own emotional monster for the first time. But could reason really count as an emotion? Or was it? Plus, if he had been infected and transformed long ago, then why had it taken until now for him to see his own emotional monster? The most important thing for Thuong Mak now was Deeply's identity. He had always thought she was his colleague's girlfriend, but now she appeared as the person who had infected him and caused his transformation with an entirely unfamiliar face. Seeing Thuong Mak staring at her, Deeply immediately replied, "I guess you have a lot of questions right now, like who I am and what I want. But those things right now, I can't really explain. I can only tell you this. The reason emotion is the most special of all, because reason can suppress all other emotions, including Liu Jia's rage, of course. Besides, you must be curious why you couldn't see your own emotional monster before. Actually, it's a very simple truth in this world. You can only see it once you know it exists." Standing outside their conversation, Liu Jia was enduring an unprecedented pressure. Thuong Mak's emotional monster was far away from him. That meant he hadn't become a slave to that emotional monster yet. On the contrary, he had become an entity capable of controlling it just like him. Still, Liu Jia didn't believe that a newly transformed emotional entity could be his match, so he continued to attack with his flaming rage. But Liu Jia was met with a bitter result when his attack missed, or to be exact, passed right through Thuong Mak's emotional monster. Even Thuong Mak didn't understand what had just happened. Deeply explained again, "Right now you still can't control your emotional monster, so it hasn't truly begun to interfere with this world yet. Your emotional monster is more like a reflection right now. It's not actually present here." As someone with experience, Liu Jia quickly realized that Thuong Mak couldn't actually control his emotional monster and that it was still within his mental realm. I was thrilled, once again commanding his own emotional monster to launch a direct attack at him, facing the ferocity of that raging beast. Thong Mak showed no fear or panic at all. At first, Lutra smiled with immense satisfaction, but it wasn't long before he couldn't laugh anymore, because he saw his own enraged monster failing to land a single bite on Thong Mak. Deeply explained that it was because he constantly kept his temper in check. Therefore, his rationality has an incredibly high resistance to anger. This level of attack is, for Thong Mak, nothing more than a light scratch. "Oh, so that's how it is," Thong Mak replied. "I was talking to Deeply, but to Lutra's ears, it sounded like nothing but a provocation." "Damn it, don't get cocky," he roared, then took control of his monster again. It was currently biting down hard on Thong Mak, carrying him into the air. Even though he didn't feel any pain, he didn't know what to do. Although Lutra's strength couldn't harm him, Thong Mak couldn't control his own emotional monster, so he could only stand there and take the hits. Ghibli gave him a simple solution. Let his emotional monster lend him its power. Now that he knew he could borrow power from the monster, he would be able to channel those emotions, she said firmly. "Is that so?" A gleam appeared in Thong Mak's eyes. Immediately after, Lutra was met with a counterattack. The scorching light from his flames was quickly suppressed by a powerful surge of blue light. It was the power from Thong Mak's rational monster, not just the angry one. And Lutra himself suffered greatly from this attack. As his body was sent flying, he kept thinking to himself, how could this possibly happen? And then, from the chaos, Thong Mak slowly stepped out. His expression was remarkably calm, his body unchanged, except for a slight change to 2 fingers on his right hand. Just by looking at them, Lutra knew he had successfully borrowed power from his emotional monster. Yet, for Thong Mak to destroy his emotional monster with just 2 fingers, this power was simply too terrifying. Lutra couldn't believe this was something a newly transformed emotional entity could do. But regardless, Lutra knew that in his current state, he was no longer Thong Mak's match. He turned and fled, hoping that once he escaped, everything would be fine. But just as Lutra took a few steps, Thong Mak lunged toward him like the Grim Reaper. Seeing that scene, Lutra was so scared that he abused his power, causing the whole area to explode in waves. What used to be a gathering place now looked no different from a battlefield. Everyone was scrambling to escape. Didn't I destroy his emotional monster? Why can he still use the power of fire? Thong Mak asked deeply. Emotional monsters aren't that easy to kill off completely. His emotional monster simply doesn't exist in this world for the time being. The exit was right in front of them. Lutra bolted out first, with Thong Mak in close pursuit. They were on a cruise ship, and not just any ship, but the most luxurious one in the world, the Emperor of the Sea. At this moment, the ship was drifting along the coast of Donghai City. Deep Lie cautiously reminded Thong Mak that hunting an emotional entity on a cruise ship was an extremely dangerous act. Why? He asked Deep Lee. Having researched it beforehand, according to public information about the world-famous cruise liner's route, the Emperor of the Sea spanned the entire globe. It was currently docked in Donghai City, becoming the most preferred vacation spot in the city. Ever since the Donghai Sea area became pitch black due to oil pollution, the Emperor of the Sea was one of the few cruise ships permitted to enter these blocked waters. You have to admit, the Thienta Corporation is truly extravagant. To organize a gathering for just the art department in a place like this is quite a bold move. However, the ship was actually under the control of an emotional entity. Emotional entities would conduct their business right on this ship. At the same time, the ship offered all kinds of services to meet every need of the emotional entities, and hunting ordinary people was one of those services. So, attacking an emotional entity like Lutra on this ship was provoking the limits of the owner of the Emperor of the Sea. Furthermore, Lutra was a super VIP guest of this ship, and the security forces on board were extremely strong. So? Thong Mak interrupted deeply, while his legs continued to chase after the man surnamed Lu. How should I put it? It would take no more than a pinky finger to crush you like an ant. So, if I don't take his life now, I won't get another chance later. His revenge is something I can't handle, right? Thong Mak asked again. Correct. In the VIP lounge on the Emperor of the Sea, the wealthy and powerful were gathered around a statue. Allow me to introduce everyone to this piece of art. The man sitting in the center spoke up. After the sorrowful young girl passed away, her skin was peeled away, revealing the stark white bones beneath. But the white bones, which should have been a symbol of death, seemed to be smiling, making the entire piece incredibly striking. The unique point lied in the material used for this artwork. It was made from a real girl, and not just any ordinary girl, but the daughter of a national prime minister. Pausing for a moment, he added, "Today, I will present this gift to the Emperor of the Sea as a token of my gratitude for the ship's help in completing this partnership." The man was Victor, a high-profile figure from the international finance group, Hoang Da. "Victor, you are too kind. Your company just conquered the market in the Stellar Nation, and now you've already sent over the Prime Minister's daughter." The person sitting opposite Victor laughed heartily and replied, "He was Lu Duong, captain of the Emperor of the Sea. I had heard that this Prime Minister didn't want to cooperate. I never expected you to use this method to punish him. He's quite imaginative, isn't he?" This time, Anna Chris from the Ugly Duckling Self-Rescue Society spoke up. "I must say, he has great taste. To that young lady, being transformed into a work of art like that is already an honor." Then came the high-pitched voices of the two young ladies of the Song family from the Great Xia. Song Hai Hai. Finally, Xiaoyan, the leader of the Black Lotus cult in Donghai City, spoke up. "I'm very curious. Why are you all so quick to set your sights on the Great Xia?" The group's conversation was suddenly interrupted when a bespectacled man arrived to report on Lucha's situation. Just as planned, he had taken the life of the art director of the Tianji Corporation. But there was a small hiccup. Lucha suddenly got the urge to hunt one more person, only to get beaten to a pulp by his prey. And that prey was none other than Chang Mo. "What a useless piece of trash," Song Hai Hai said with a look of annoyance. "If it weren't for the fact that he's been following him for so long, he wouldn't even be qualified to hunt on this ship with his pathetic level. I've always been curious about this great person you all keep mentioning. Who exactly is he?" Victor asked curiously. But He-Hai shook her head, telling him he'd better not ask too many questions if he wanted their future cooperation to go smoothly. To be able to defeat Luja right after transforming such talent, that really is impressive. How about this? Don't let Luja get killed. Even though he's just an ignorant pawn, we still have to show some respect to that great person, Liu Yang said. He reminded his subordinates to quickly seal off the scene and keep other emotion entities away. Normal people didn't matter, because in any case they would just run away on their own. After a moment of thought, the old man added, "As for that emotion entity currently beating up Liu Cha, I doubt he has any significant background, so you can just go ahead and finish him off." "Understood, sir." His subordinate acknowledged the order and quickly departed. Back on the deck, Changma had caught up to Lucha and, without a shred of mercy, delivered a punch that sent Lucha sprawling across the ground. Swift as a flash, he grabbed him by the throat, raised his other hand, and prepared to strike down. "Your death day has arrived," Changma declared. "Are you insane? You're actually going to kill me right here?" Luja became frantic. "That's right," Changmo replied curtly, then swung his hand down. Seeing it with his own eyes, Liuja was scared out of his wits and screamed with all his might, "Wait, I was wrong. I was really wrong. As long as you spare my life, I'll agree to anything." Seeing that Changmo had no intention of stopping, Lucha's voice became even more desperate. "Your mother, I know who killed your mother. If you take my life, you will never know who killed her." At that moment, Changmo actually stopped. His sharp claws were only 1 centimeter from Lucha's eyes. Before he could even breathe a sigh of relief, Changmo's hand shifted, and his sharp claws plunged into his shoulder, making him shriek in agony. "Isn't it you who killed my mother?" Changma asked in a cold voice. Lucia shook his head desperately with all the strength he had left. He claimed that back in the old neighborhood where Changmo and his mother lived, an emotion entity had appeared, secretly spreading its emotional virus and hunting down newly born emotion monsters. Lucia said that he himself had been infected by this person. That was why he turned into a monster, but instead of being killed, he had his state stabilized by that person and was recruited as a subordinate. Just like that, Lucia dumped all the blame onto that person. He said that person had forced him, compelled him to spread the emotional virus to turn normal people into monsters. It was him. He forced me to take their lives while he harvested the emotional power of those people. To make himself stronger, Lucia whined. "Who is he? Where is he now?" Even though he only believed half of what he said, Changmo couldn't help but ask. Unexpectedly, Lucia suddenly burst into wild laughter like a madman. "Who is he? Ha ha, right now, he's a high and mighty big shot. If he finds out you killed me, you'll die too. He is saying that much." Lucia suddenly stopped laughing, his face turning pale. His voice lowered into a mumble. "No, I can't say it. If I tell you, that person will not forgive me. Then die." Changma had run out of patience and intended to deliver the final blow. Unexpectedly, Liu Yang's subordinate appeared and said coldly, "I order your heart to stop beating." In that very instant, all of Chang Mo's movements were interrupted. His heart indeed stopped beating, and his body collapsed next to Liu Jia. Liu Jia scrambled up, trembling, looking from Changma to the newcomer. "Sir, please forgive me, I arrived late," the man said respectfully. "You know who I am?" Liu Jia asked with a frown. "Yes, the Emperor of the Sea Ship will do everything in its power to serve you." Even though he didn't know who the other party was, hearing those words made Liu Jia feel gloatingly triumphant. Just a moment ago, he had been as terrified of Chang Mo as a stray dog. Now he used his boot to stomp on his head, sneering, "Aren't you so capable? Still want to kill me? Come on, go ahead and kill me if you can." What Liu Jia didn't expect was that Chang Mo suddenly moved. He froze instantly and scrambled backward, hiding behind the man who had just arrived. The man himself was also very surprised to see Chang Mo sit up. "He's still not dead?" the bespectacled man muttered. Chang Mo didn't know what had just happened to him either. Ye Li immediately explained that it was the emotional power of the arrogance emotion entity. When that old man's order commanded Thuong Mac's heart to stop, it had no choice but to stop. That power felt as if it were truly invincible. His emotion type level is also 2 tiers higher than Thuong Mac's, so naturally, you cannot resist his commands. But Thuong Mac possesses the rational emotion type. It can suppress all other emotions. Otherwise, you'd be nothing but a corpse right now. Even so, Deeply has to insist that this is an opponent you absolutely cannot defeat with your current strength. Thuong Mac stares ahead with guarded eyes, looking at the man standing in his way, that Liu Jia. Then he turns to ask Deeply, is he also an emotion type? Why can't I see his emotional monster? His emotional monster is likely deep within his soul realm right now, just like your own is. That was the first time Thuong Mac had ever heard the concept of a soul realm. Deeply explains simply that it is the primary habitat for emotional monsters. Previously, Thuong Mac's emotional monster was right at the border, the boundary between the soul realm and reality, which is why everyone could see it but couldn't touch it, like when Liu Jia used fire to attack it. Once an emotional monster moves deep into the soul realm, it becomes very difficult to see. This kid is lucky to be alive. Not dying is a good thing. You know what you have to do, right? Backed by that man with the glasses, Liu Jia had already returned to his arrogant, cocky self, casually barking orders. Understood, the old man obediently replied. Then, turning toward Thuong Mac, he continued his command. I order you to kneel. Thuong Mac immediately felt an invisible pressure forcing him to drop to both knees. He found it completely impossible to resist. Deeply, standing to the side, explains that this is the hallmark of a command stemming from the arrogance emotion type. The less damage a command causes to the target, the harder it is for the target to resist. The wider the gap in levels between Thuong Mac and his opponent, the more difficult it becomes for him to fight back. While Thuong Mac was pinned down by that arrogant guy, Liu Jia walked over and delivered a slap to his face. It wasn't too painful, but it was clearly an act of humiliation. After striking him, a smug, triumphant smile appeared on his face. Aren't you so talented? Wanting revenge? You think you can do it on your own? Your mother was just a low-life emotion type. We could treat her however we wanted. To return the favor for what you did to me earlier, I'll spell it out for you. Then, Liu Jia uses a taunting tune to tell the story of how Thuong Mac's mother transformed. He says the day she transformed was a rare day when she was lucid, not controlled by her emotions. She had bought delicious food and cooked a special meal. She wanted to apologize to her son for always losing her temper for no reason lately. The main dish was braised beef with tomatoes. The sour taste was Thuong Mac's favorite. Unfortunately, that family dinner turned into a scene of blood splattered everywhere, even on the ceiling. The pot of braised beef was also smashed to bits. Actually, your mother became a target just because of a random comment from that great master. How about we pick that single mother living next door as the next prey? That's exactly what he said. Liu Jia recounts this in a tone whose emotion is impossible to read. He claims that at first, he vehemently opposed it, because after all, Thuong Mac's mother was a very kind person. When he was poor, she had helped him and even brought him food. But later, when Thuong Mac's mother began to lose her temper, and he watched his life gradually fall into the abyss, he slowly began to enjoy that feeling, like some kind of pervert. Liu Jia says, it was the feeling of dominating someone else's life, the feeling of stealing someone else's happiness. Gradually, he wanted even more. He wanted Thwongmak's mother to turn into an emotional monster. I wanted her to become his food, and in the end, everything went exactly as he wanted. As he said this, Luja displayed a crazed expression fueled by his excitement. Meanwhile, Thwongmak couldn't bear to listen any longer. He struggled to get up to attack, but right at that moment, the arrogance emotion type gave another order. This time he commanded Thwongmak to cease all movement, and his half-finished attack was cut short. Then, getting even bolder, he ordered Thwongmak to kneel and kowtow before Luja, and he had to do it without any way to resist. Luja seemed to thoroughly enjoy this feeling. He told the arrogant emotion type that for the next action, he wanted Thwongmak to do it of his own volition, not because he was ordered to. The old man obeyed immediately. Then, Luja looked down at Thwongmak as if he were a dog and commanded, "I'll give you one chance. Swear to be my loyal dog, by barking twice, or you die." Clearly, Luja wanted to humiliate him to the very end. At this moment, under the influence of the command, he was still kneeling on the ground. Deeply leaned in close and asked what Thwongmak planned to do next. Do next? Shouldn't that question be turned around and asked to you instead? Thwongmak gritted his teeth and replied, "You turned me into an emotional monster, and yet you know so many things about me. You even understand Luja well and know the history of this ship. You must have already guessed the current situation, right? State your conditions. I accept them all." Luja, not being a patient man, saw that Thwongmak wasn't speaking, so he walked over and kicked him hard in the head, demanding he bark quickly. But he was met only with Thwongmak's silence. As for Deeply, after hearing what he had just said, the corners of her mouth curled into a smile of pure satisfaction. "All you need to do is accept my power, and that's it." Deeply hugged him, whispering softly into his ear the very next second. A terrifying surge of power slammed directly into Thwongmak, sending him hovering into the air. Lutrat, who had been standing nearby, was also blasted away, and countless razor-sharp stone shards erupted from Thwongmak's face, just like the things on your fingers. "You look like this now." Lutrat was extremely panicked. He scrambled back to the side of that arrogance entity and asked, "What on earth is this?" "His emotional power is skyrocketing at a dizzying rate. He's lost control," the old man replied while looking at Thwongmak with an expression of pure, utter disbelief. Thwongmak's consciousness seemed to detach from his body, falling into an endless cosmic void. He didn't know what it was. He only knew that all his emotions had vanished. Whether it was sadness, joy, shock, agitation, or anything else, he couldn't feel them anymore. The only thing left seemed to be cold, calculated intent. Thwongmak could feel the massive shroud over his head, and then memories appeared like shattered fragments. They were memories of his mother from the days before she was blinded by rage. They used to live so happily together. Then came memories of the saddest day when his father lay in a coffin, followed by days that felt like torture when his mother was constantly angry for no reason, scolding him, even hitting him, and then suddenly regaining her senses and sobbing in regret. Finally, there was the image of his mother losing her life next to a pot of tomato-braised beef, along with Lutrat's gloating, triumphant smile. Thwongmak's glasses suddenly shattered into pieces. But it wasn't just the glasses. Something about his body had also changed drastically. Deeply, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Right at this moment. Very good, you've stored up enough fury in your body already. That will help you keep yourself grounded within my power. Remember this well. At critical moments, you must let go of your reason. Only then can you command the power of the intellect. If not, you will lose control and transform completely into an emotional monster. As for what comes next, go ahead and enjoy your revenge." The moment. Deeply finished speaking, the stone shards covering Thwongmak's face in reality shattered. He had returned, no longer wearing glasses, and he was no longer the one who only knew how to endure. The surging emotional power surrounding. Thwongmak's body suddenly went dead silent, making Lutrat burst out laughing. "Ha, what the hell is this?" The emotional power just suddenly vanished. I thought he was actually something special. Even so, the arrogance entity beside him quickly realized that something wasn't quite right. It wasn't that Thwongmak's emotional power had disappeared. It was that the level of his emotional power had increased to a point where they could no longer even perceive it. The power Thwongmak released at that moment was so strong that its influence covered the entire ship. Many of those dancing in the bar below were knocked to the ground by the pressure. Or in another case, a steak plate at a restaurant spontaneously cracked into many pieces. That pressure was enough to make anyone tremble, except for those with deep pockets. Many of the wealthy elites sitting in the captain's room weren't affected too severely. However, they also realized that this was power belonging to a world-class emotional entity. World-class, you say? Anna exhaled a puff of smoke and muttered to herself. Not just her. Victor also felt something strange. That's strange. Do you guys have another world-class entity on this ship today? Is he targeting us? Could it be an accomplice of the person who beat up Lutrat? Maybe he's aiming for the master behind Lutrat. This time it was He who spoke up among them. Lu Duong, acting as captain, was the calmest. He reassured those in the room, telling them not to worry too much because no matter who arrived or what their scheme was, as long as they intended to offend this Emperor of the Seas ship, then even if they were world-class, they would have to die. Meanwhile, the two directly confronting Thongmak, Lutrat, and that arrogance entity must have been more stressed than anyone. Lutrat was completely unable to explain why Thongmak's power had suddenly surged, to the point where even they couldn't perceive it anymore. And that arrogance entity wasn't feeling arrogant anymore. He was already drenched in cold sweat. Even though he didn't want to believe it, the fact that Thongmak had suddenly attained such immense power was absolute reality. Lutrat couldn't sense it at all, but because the old man was slightly stronger, he could vaguely perceive it. It was a terrifying pressure, like a disaster from a supreme source. It was the exact same might as those high-level figures, a pressure belonging to the world-class level. Not even in his wildest dreams could he have believed it. I never thought I'd run into someone this terrifying. Left with no other choice in that situation, the old man screamed at Lucha to run, but before either of them could move, Thongmak caught them both. Perhaps because he wasn't wearing his glasses, his facial expression was unusually vicious, and his actions were even more brutal, as he ruthlessly snapped the necks of those two bastards. Once it was over, Thongmak couldn't help but marvel, not expecting it to be this easy. You ripped someone's head off the moment you started. Don't you think that's a bit much? Deeply asked. Actually, I didn't do it well enough. I should have killed them slowly. Thongmak replied, his voice filled with cold indifference. This attitude of his made Deeply extremely satisfied, because only such an extreme nature could truly control the power of rational emotion. But Deeply also warned Thongmak not to get cocky too soon, because the real show had only just begun. Right as she finished that sentence, Thongmak immediately sensed another force surrounding him. So this was the real show Deeply was talking about. A monster appeared before him. Its emotion was immense, like a king sitting on a throne, with overwhelming pressure. The appearance of this emotional monster left Thongmak completely stunned. Don't you find it strange? Deeply asked again. You and that piece of trash fought so intensely on this ship, yet it hasn't sustained a single scratch. Because this ship is also an emotional construct. This is its true face. In the world of emotional power, how much you see depends entirely on your own strength. That's why you had to rely on my power just to catch a glimpse of what this world really looks like. This was the true power on the high seas. The Emperor, standing on the shoulders of the massive emotional monster that Thongmak now saw, was Lu Duong. He had spotted him too, and naturally, he didn't like what he saw at all. So, you're that world-class emotional construct with a death wish. Now, prepare to die. In this universe between heaven and earth, any transgression will be punished. All things must submit to my command. Any overstepping shall be paid for in blood. It wasn't hard for Thongmak to realize that Lu Duong was chanting in sync with his emotional monster. It seemed he could amplify his command-based power. Through chanting this form is actually quite refreshing. By my command, freeze the space around the intruder, Lu Duong ordered. Instantly, Thongmak's emotional monster was trapped by solid golden walls. They were erected by Lu Duong's own emotional monster, and it didn't stop there. He continued to command it to use its golden sword to execute judgment, ensuring that all the emotional power trapped within the space he had just created would be cut in half by this strike. A barrage of golden swords erupted from within the space, piercing straight through those golden walls. They aimed to impale the emotional monster Thongmak had trapped inside. If it had been any ordinary emotional construct, it would have been shredded into bits by this move. And Lu Duong assumed Thongmak was no exception. Humph, you don't know your own limits, he muttered. The people in the captain's quarters had come out by now, just to watch, though they hadn't expected the battle to be decided so quickly. They assumed that even though Thuong Mak possessed world-class power, his combat experience was still too green to actually let Lu Duong calmly recite such a long command to subdue him. But that emotional monster, I don't think I've ever seen it before. What kind of rare emotion is that? Anna wondered. Even if we haven't seen it, its power has already been cut in half. In a situation like this, even at the world-class level, I doubt there's any emotional monster that can turn the tables, Victor replied with a shrug. I was certain that as long as Captain Lu Duong continued to issue orders, capturing Thuong Mak alive was only a matter of time. Little did they know, the moment he finished his sentence, a loud crack echoed. A massive fissure appeared on the golden wall Lu Duong's monster had created. The sound of that cracking made their expressions all turn grim at once. Lu Duong was no exception, but before he could react, the golden wall shattered completely. Thuong Mak and his emotional monster remained in their original state. It seemed they hadn't suffered any damage at all. After breaking free from the siege, it was time for a counterattack. Thuong Mak raised his right hand high, and his emotional monster, guided by his actions, lifted the swords in its hands toward the sky. When Thuong Mak lowered his hand, every single one of those swords struck down in unison. Just like that, the power. Lu Duong had been so confident would overwhelm his opponent was completely shattered by the very person he had looked down upon. At that moment, power was surging from everywhere toward a single point. Strong winds picked up, and Anna clutched her hat tightly. Lu Duong's eyes widened in shock. Powerful energy continued to erupt from below. Thuong Mak's eyes were cold and gray, his entire body radiating killing intent. Only now did Lu Duong look at his opponent in a panic. I didn't think he could break through that confinement in such a state. And to have this kind of emotional monster, how did someone like him get on my ship? What exactly is he after? Or is he trying to do something to the corporation behind me? He went silent, biting his lip without another word. Suddenly, Lu Duong did a 180-degree turn, shouting, "None of that matters. My way of doing things has always been to kill whoever stands in my way." A second later, he lowered his voice. The Emperor of the High Seas Emotional Entity Guard boomed with a voice that echoed far and wide. The very next second, its guards suddenly lunged at Thuong Mak with their weapons. Reason manifested in the face of their fierce assault. Its eyes were pitch black, devoid of all emotion, as it stood alone to fight off the guards. Suddenly, Thuong Mak glanced at someone. Lu Duong raised his voice, and the action paused. Thuong Mak was startled and stood frozen. The next moment, several guards took the opportunity to strike him with their weapons. But strangely, the spear tips did not pierce directly through his body. Thuong Mak shot a glance at his opponent, and the next second, he tossed the group of guards aside, but another wave immediately charged in. Lu Duong kept shouting loudly from his side. Stop in front of him stood Reason, and the scene fell into absolute silence. Lu Duong's eyes widened to the limit when suddenly a massive blade swung toward him, and Thuong Mak seized the chance to charge and attack. Suddenly, Lu Duong's face froze in place. Seeing Thuong Mak approaching like a lightning bolt, Lu Duong did not back down and summoned the Emperor of the High Seas Emotional Entity. On this side, Thuong Mak and Reason were charging forward. Reason's hand pierced through the opponent's armor, moving with lightning speed to tear holes right through the plating. The Emperor of the High Seas Emotional Entity was no less formidable, its spears striking out directly at the enemy. Reason swept its gaze across the battlefield. The fight became incredibly intense. Nobody knew how much time had passed before both sides stopped fighting. Thuong Mak was breathing heavily, exhausted, while Lu Duong watched him with tired eyes. The kid was already weakening. "I can win this," he thought to himself while looking into the distance. There weren't many places to hide out here on the sea, and he would have a perfect chance to capture him alive if he could just investigate his emotional monster more clearly. That would also be a massive contribution to the entire corporation. Suddenly, Dalai appeared behind Thuong Mak. "I've got some bad news for you. My strength is almost tapped out." Hearing this, Thuong Mak immediately asked, "Then what should we do?" Dalai proposed a plan. "What else can we do?" "Obviously we run." As soon as she finished, Dalai grabbed Thuong Mak and hauled him away. "Go, hurry!" she screamed at him before jumping into the sea. Witnessing that, Lu Duong was stunned. Is that kid insane? Why would he run toward it? Thuong Mak hadn't fully hit the water yet. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Before him lay a truly bizarre, strange land. Thuong Mak stood still for a few seconds, carefully glancing behind him. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. The desolate, wasteland-like terrain left him completely bewildered. A city submerged under darkness, with thousands of hands reaching up from below. The atmosphere turned incredibly eerie. The scene was enough to terrify anyone watching. Thongmak's face grew dark. All this time, I always thought everyone else was sick. Suddenly, droplets of blood began to flow from the corners of his eyes, but I was wrong. The next second, he clutched his head and screamed at the top of his lungs, "It's not just the people, the ocean, the cities, the land, the sky. Everything is sick." Up on the deck, Lu Duong was searching frantically. His face was a mask of bewilderment, and his eyes were bleeding. "What on earth is going on here?" Lu Duong gritted his teeth, deep in thought. "I understand now, so that's how it is. His power is borrowed. He doesn't have the status or capacity to withstand this truth." A moment later, he shouted toward Thongmak, "You brat, you're dead!" At that moment, daylight appeared in front of him. "Close your eyes. Even though you were able to glimpse a few truths by borrowing my status, it isn't something you can handle right now. You just can't bear it." Her voice echoed in midair. "Now let me take control of your body." The guards had caught up from who knows where. Daylight and Thongmak kept looking in that direction. Reason had reappeared, appearing even stronger. Lu Duong looked panic-stricken, unable to say a word. Beneath the sea, a massive hand reached out, looking utterly terrifying. Lu Duong screamed in shock. "The Black Sea? His emotional monster can actually control the Black Sea?" Standing amidst the vast ocean, he muttered, "How is that even possible?" After some time, a figure appeared on the shore. Dalai looked at Thongmak and asked, "Are you okay?" He replied tiredly, "I'm fine." Suddenly, he noticed something strange. Without thinking, he raised a hand to touch his glasses. Dalai approached Thongmak and said, "It seems that in your subconscious, these glasses represent your sense of reason. Once your emotions are soothed, your reason will regain the upper hand, and so the glasses will reappear." After hearing this, he fell silent, then closed his eyes and replied to her, "Donghai. Donghai City, and that thing in the sky, what on earth has happened to this world?" Daylight continued with a confident expression. "This world has long undergone earth-shattering changes. It's just that at your level there's no way you could know." She crossed her arms and looked out at the vast sea. "The news says Donghai is contaminated by oil, but in reality, the thing polluting it is an emotional entity." She then inadvertently mentioned a buried past. "Many years ago, a great war caused a world-class depression emotional entity to lose control, turning into a thick black liquid that caused countless aircraft carriers and warships to sink right here. Did you see that face? That is the true essence of the depression entity." In every word Dalai spoke, the city seemed to manifest. The city of Donghai, and indeed the entire world, was now being dominated by emotional entities. So, it's only normal that Donghai City has a few terrifying emotional entities, just like that ship and the emotional monster that appeared behind you. Suddenly, she looked up at the sky. "As for that thing in the heavens," she muttered softly under her breath. If I'm not mistaken, that is. On his side, Thongmak wore a look of confusion, not understanding what she was talking about. Dalai looked at him and said, "Oh, you can't hear it? It seems that regarding things of that tier, you're not even capable of comprehending this right now. Your soul isn't strong enough to bear the weight of such greatness. If you try to dig deeper, I'm afraid it will only lead to your mental collapse." Thongmak lowered his voice after hearing this. "So this is the truth behind the so-called emotional sickness, huh? It turns out the sickness was just the tip of the iceberg." Dalai then got straight to the point. "I saved you, but in doing so I also forced you to see the reality of this world. For a tiny ant like you, perhaps it would have been happier to die in blissful ignorance. You can never go back to your peaceful life again. Slaughter and danger will cling to you like a shadow." Thongmak's eyes went blank as he processed her words. I was the one who dragged him into this vortex. Do you hate me? All the memories from before flooded back into his mind. Thongmak closed his eyes tightly to fully process them. A moment later, he spoke, "No, I'm actually very grateful to you. I know you had your own agenda, but I've never felt this clear-headed before. It's like I've been reborn." Daylight looked stunned at his reaction. "Then can you tell me who you really are? What do you really want from me?" It seemed his words pleased her greatly. She gazed into the blue expanse and poured out her heart. "I am just a wandering soul. As soon as she finished, she seemed to drift back into the memories of the city from before. For so many years I have been wandering this city. No one could see me, and no one could talk to me. In her words, daylight seemed like a missing piece of a puzzle. My reason was fading, and my strength was constantly weakening. At the same time, a massive amount of my memories vanished. I even forgot who I was, remembering only my name. Her voice suddenly softened, turning choked with emotion. I was like a wildfire with no fuel left to keep burning, destined to fade away. She snapped her eyes open. Until I met you. Dalai recalled the moment they first crossed paths. When she bumped into him, "Excuse me, could you move aside? I'm almost late." Dalai looked at his retreating back and said, "For all these years, you're the only one who has ever spoken to me, the only one who could touch me, and the only one worthy of bearing my reason." A blue flame flared up visibly. "If I am the wildfire, then you are the furnace. Only with you can I keep myself from vanishing. That is why I approached you. I pretended to be your colleague, which is why I helped you investigate the cause of your mother's death, and why I gave everything I had to protect you on the Hai Thuong ship. Emperor." Dalai gripped his arm tightly. "I will use all my power to help you obtain everything you desire, wealth, power, and status. Everything you want, I will help you achieve." She gently shook him. "But in return, you must become stronger. Strong enough to dare to face the secrets of the heavens directly. Strong enough to uncover the secrets hidden in the sky above." The further she spoke, the more her voice echoed across the vast void. "Because the most important part of me that is missing is up there in the sky." After saying that, she turned and gave Thong Mak a faint smile. "Let's introduce ourselves properly. I am Dalai, and today marks my rebirth as well." She held out her hand to him. Thong Mak smiled faintly without a word. As the two reached an agreement, the sun began to rise. "Thong Mak, this is our rebirth." From the side of the deck, a voice rang out. "Have you found out who that person is yet?" The other party replied. It was easier than expected. They brought out Thong Mak's profile. Thong Mak, 18 years old, art director at TNT Corporation in Donghai City. Mother passed away when he was 10, suspected to be murdered by Lu Trat. According to his company's annual health reports, he was still an ordinary person as of March this year. He glanced at Kai and frowned. "That's impossible. He fought the Emperor of Hai Thuong. That proves he has at least world-class strength. And all in just a few short months? It is absolutely impossible to have such a massive increase in power." She seemed to have realized something. "Is that guy's power borrowed?" Triu Dien replied calmly, "Most likely." He remembered the moment Thong Mak fell. Before he fought the captain, his eyes suddenly started bleeding. "I'm afraid that was because he saw that thing in the sky. If that were truly his own power, he wouldn't have ended up in that state." He let out a scoff upon hearing this. "How interesting. I never imagined someone could borrow power like that. That is power capable of controlling even the Black Sea. Who exactly is backing him?" With that, she walked away. "The captain also asked us to look into information about that guy." "Right? Exactly. Let's put the matter regarding the captain on hold for now. I'm leaving. I haven't reached world-class status yet, and staying up late is still bad for my skin." Triu Dien heard this and immediately agreed. He glanced toward the other person and asked, "Are you just going to leave that kid alone, Miss Song?" He replied with a look of calm confidence. "With our Song family's influence in Daiha, he won't be able to escape. And as for the person behind him who lent him that power, don't even think about it." She said with a sinister edge, "We must seize this power for ourselves, for our master." Dalai turned to look at Thong Mak's exhausted state and asked with great curiosity, "What's the plan now?" He immediately stated his intentions in a firm tone. "Although Lu Trat is dead, the person who ordered him to kill my mother all those years ago is still alive. I must find the master that Lu Trat mentioned." Hearing this, she gave him a serious warning. "That master, I'm afraid they're extremely dangerous." Dalai's voice grew increasingly cautious, a major player lurking in the shadows. "You are currently no match for someone like that." She pondered for a moment, then decisively stated, "The most important thing for our next step is to find a place that can protect us. If I'm not mistaken, the factions involved on that ship are definitely hunting us down. My strength is almost completely drained. If we run into another world-class threat, you and I are finished." Dalai's eyes landed on Thong Mak's face again, and she spoke with a hint of sarcasm. "Not to mention that you've already provoked the force behind the Sea Emperor. Just the uniqueness of the emotional power you've displayed is enough to drive countless people into a frenzy. He suddenly stared at something and shouted loudly, leaving her confused. What's wrong? Thuong Mak stood rooted to the spot, dazed, muttering to himself as he suddenly remembered he still had to go to work today. But I guess it's already too late for that, isn't it? Besides, our entire project team is dead. I guess there's really nothing left to do. His tone shifted rapidly, turning into a desperate lament. I'm getting paid without having to work. What a waste of such a good opportunity. Now I suppose this counts as skipping work. I might even get fired and lose my salary. How am I supposed to afford living expenses after this? Daylai said nothing, merely pressing her lips together as she watched Thuong Mak's current state. But immediately after speaking, he suddenly bowed his head, remaining silent for a long time as he regained his composure. Thuong Mak slowly looked up at the sky and whispered with a sense of awe, only now do I truly feel that my life has completely changed. I can never go back. Da Lai, standing beside him, looked at him with a complex expression mixed with satisfaction. She quickly turned her back and urged him as he was still lingering behind. Let's go, we're almost there. The shelter I mentioned is right ahead. Their journey continued in silence until they reached the shelter inside the building. At the shelter, rows of patients stared blankly and curiously, eyes locked onto Thuong Mak and Daylai. He pointed at the patients and asked her, puzzled, Is this the place you said could protect me? Daylai nodded comfortably and replied immediately, That's right. The shelter I spoke of is called Donghai City Mental Hospital No. 2. Understanding Thuong Mak's confusion, Daylai quickly explained, Don't look down on this mental hospital. Although it's located in a slightly remote area, it's an official institution of Donghai City, specializing in treating patients with emotional disorders. Her voice carried a serious tone as she slowly analyzed the situation. Donghai City lies within the territory of the nation of Daiha, and the Daiha government is the most powerful force in Donghai. An emotional entity like you, capable of controlling emotional monsters, is very likely to be recruited by the government to become a member of an official organization. Dailai glanced at him with a mysterious smile and whispered, Besides, there is something else special about this place. It's a shame you can't see it yet. She continued walking forward and explained slowly to Thuong Mak's bewildered face, Do you remember when you borrowed my power before? Did you see those giant emotional monsters in Donghai City? One of them is guarding this very place. The scene shifts to when he steps out of the examination room. The nurse in the waiting room smiled and politely informed him, Please wait a moment, the results will be ready shortly. Thuong Mak quickly replied, Okay, thank you. After returning to his seat, he curiously scanned his surroundings, silently thinking, It really lives up to the reputation of a hospital specializing in treating diseases related to emotions. Here, none of the nurses had bags on their heads. What was even more surprising was, even the patients rarely had bags on their heads. Thuong Mak seemed to remember something and stealthily glanced at the person beside him, secretly assessing, except for this person. However, this bag doesn't seem to look quite like the ones I've seen before. Right at that moment, Daylai's voice suddenly rang out, distracting his attention. You have truly changed. As your understanding of yourself grows deeper, your power will also rise accordingly. Therefore, the things you can see will also increase. Before, you could only see bags of angry emotions, but now you can see other types of emotional bags. She then turned to the patient, Vuong Ban, who was laughing maniacally and said, This is likely the case that emerged after being infected by the joy emotion virus. The patient can't help but laugh no matter what. No matter what happens, they just feel happy. Thuong Mak heard her and muttered quietly, Is that so? Just then, an incredibly enthusiastic voice suddenly rang out from behind him. Hi there, Jaiki. Her face, partially hidden by her bangs, leaned in and asked Thuong Mak in a friendly tone, Are you here for a checkup too? He looked blank but nodded honestly. Yeah, why? Jiaikai hurriedly shook her head, bashfully voicing her thoughts. No, it's just you look pretty normal to me. Thuong Mak studied her closely, then remarked with a skeptical look, You look pretty normal too. As soon as she heard that, Jaiki suddenly lost her composure. Blushing, she shouted, Of course I'm normal. It's my parents who keep insisting I come here. With emotion-based illnesses breaking out so severely lately, they're just scared there's something wrong with me. They threatened to throw away my entire collection if I didn't come to the mental hospital for a checkup. Contrary to her outburst, he just coolly mused, I see. Ji Kai continued, whispering about the information she had dug up. Hey, I looked it up online. This Donghai number 2 mental hospital is the second facility, the place that specializes in treating patients with exceptionally severe cases. I heard they even split it into Ward A and Ward B. The patients in Ward A are already pretty abnormal. As she spoke, her tone grew shaky with fear. The patients in Ward B are even scarier. They're all homicidal maniacs who have to be locked up with iron chains. Thongmak repeated with a puzzled look. Ward A, Ward B. Right then, Daylai spoke up from behind to explain, if I'm not mistaken, Ward A handles those who have been infected but haven't transformed yet. And Ward B handles those emotional entities that have already transformed. Her words only left Thongmak more confused as he looked at Jaiki. If that's the case, why did you come here? She smiled sheepishly and explained her plan. Because if the second facility refuses to admit me, then I can finally explain it to my family. Ji Kai scratched her head and stated with full confidence, the first facility might have actually admitted me. But the second facility? A person with the potential to be a murderer like me? How could they possibly take me in? Nurse Chu Diong suddenly walked over to inform the waiting patients. Truong Toan, Lai Kao Dan, your results are in. We recommend you two transfer to the Donghai number 1 mental hospital for your checkup. She then looked toward Vuong Ban and instructed, Vuong Ban, your prescription is ready. Remember to take your medication on time. Jai Kai's confidence soared even higher after hearing Chu Duong. See? Even those patients who look somewhat normal. They don't take people like us who are this normal here. They'll definitely just send us packing. But the next announcement immediately made her stiffen. Thuong Mak, Truong Jai Ki, both of you, follow me to complete the admission paperwork. Sweat poured down Jai Ki's face like a waterfall. Meanwhile, Thuong Mak helplessly stared at her as Ji Kai's desperate scream echoed through the hospital. Why? And then, Ji Kai and Thuong Mak obediently followed Chu Duong while the nurse happily chattered away. It's been a long time since we've had patients come to the second facility on their own. You two are very wise. Choosing the second facility is truly the wisest among wise choices. Chu Duong boasted proudly to them about the hospital's amenities. We have 5-star standard chefs here every day. They cook, and I'm just afraid that by then, you guys won't even want to leave. She turned her head with a smile, looking at the two patients and gently reassuring them. So, just rest easy and stay here to recuperate. Nurse Chu Dong Jai Kai's mind still couldn't accept it, and she kept mumbling as she walked. How can this be? This is the number 2 mental hospital. Am I really going to be admitted? Have I really become that abnormal? Shu Dung overheard and casually explained. Actually, these days, who doesn't have a few psychological issues? Timely intervention and treatment are the only ways to prevent major incidents. Behind her, Thong Mak whispered, asking Dalai, is the person beside Jai Ki also an emotional entity? I don't see her emotional monster. Could it be hiding in her mental realm? She nodded slowly. Exactly. Because your power isn't strong enough yet, you can't see the emotional monster hiding deep within her mental realm. He continued to look skeptical. Does this hospital just use a blood test to determine if we are emotional entities? Daylai quickly provided a brief explanation. If I remember correctly, it's because emotional entities are technically invisible to equipment. In theory, your blood cannot be observed by standard devices. However, what are the specific observation methods? I haven't used any related equipment, so I'm not really sure. Thuong Mak nodded slightly, thoughtful, and muttered, is that so? Cut to the scene. Once everyone reached the gate to Zone B, soldiers positioned high above were watching their every move. Ji Kai suddenly turned pale, sweat pouring down like a stream. Trembling, she called out. Wait a minute. She kept backing away, asking to confirm. This is Zone B, right? The place where they keep those twisted murderers? Right? Ji Kai seemed to lose it, grabbing Chu Duong's arm and screaming frantically, I never thought about killing anyone. Why do I have to go into Zone B? Shadong quickly calmed her down. Don't worry, those short videos are all just nonsense. They have to make it creepy to get more views. Just cooperate with the treatment, and you'll be fine. Ji Kai asked slowly, filled with doubt. Is that really true? She kept a smiling face and nodded. Of course. Ji Kai's eyes suddenly darted around as she realized something terrifying. She stammered, But you? No, all of you. She stepped back cautiously, asking in fear, Why is everyone holding a gun? Ji Kai's instincts were spot on. On all the high platforms, rows of gun barrels were aimed straight at them. Behind her, Thuong Mak observed the situation silently. He wondered, incredibly surprised, could they all see it? He slowly swallowed a gulp of saliva along with a drop of cold sweat, confirming to himself, "So that is Truong Jaiki's emotional monster, isn't it?" Thuong Mak whispered, curiously asking Dayli, "I want to know what happens to the patients the authorities don't choose." She pondered seriously, then replied in a tense, grave tone, "They'll likely be detained. If they show any signs of danger, they might be executed on the spot. So don't do anything reckless, all right?" The air seemed to freeze for a moment as Jaikai's emotional monster began to emerge. Chu Chudong tightened her grip on her gun, ready to pull the trigger at any second. On the observation deck, Old Lai was fully focused, locking onto the target below. Thuong Mak looked at the air around him, silently making a decision while feeling conflicted. He quickly reached out to touch Jaikai's shoulder while she was losing control. Thuong Mak tilted his head and whispered a gentle reminder, "Jaikai is being taken over by her emotional monster. Don't be so tense, just relax. Being this tense, you might just get mistaken for a threat and actually get shot dead." His hand exerted power onto her shoulder, making the monster stop moving. Jaikai gradually regained her composure, causing the emotional monsters to disappear without a trace. She turned her head toward him, answering in a daze, "I guess you're right." Then Jaikai shyly scratched her head and said to Chuduong, "I'm sorry." Chuduong was shocked and disbelieving. She muttered to herself. Her emotional monster retreated deep into her inner consciousness. She was just on the brink of losing control, yet she managed to stabilize herself. The tension in her body released along with a gentle sigh. Dalai was extremely excited, whispering to Thuong Mak that was unexpected. "She's just a stranger. Yet you cared about her safety and even used your rational power to help her suppress her breakdown." He replied, confused but with sharp logic, "I just wanted to show a little empathy. If I saw her about to be killed and just stood by, wouldn't I look pretty cold-blooded? Surely the government wouldn't take in a cold-blooded emotional entity, right? Care about her safety? How could that be?" On the other side, Chu Duong's face darkened as she ordered into her radio, "Fire." Immediately, a loud bang echoed, aimed straight at Jaikai, causing her to stagger while Thuong Mak was rooted to the spot. As Jaikai's body swayed and fell forward in the quiet air, she had painfully lost her life under the gun barrel. His face went stiff, his eyes filled with profound grief. Staring at Jaikai's fallen body, Dayli quickly urged Thuong Mak, "Hey, show some reaction, will you? Otherwise you really are cold-blooded." Following her words, he immediately knelt before Jaikai's body, muttering in a daze, "Another person dead, how many is this now?" To the point where it just feels like the norm. After regaining his composure, Thuong Mak keenly realized, no blood, no death, are these tranquilizer darts? Seeing his reaction, Daly chuckled. Not a bad performance. Just a little slow on the reaction. Shu Dong immediately apologized sincerely. "Sorry, I'll pay more attention next time." On the other side, Giaikai's body was placed on a stretcher, accompanied by Chu Duong's instructions. "Sorry for the trouble. Unknown emotional subject. Unstable emotions. Proceed with high-risk containment." The two nurses holding the stretcher obeyed. Understood. Thuong Mak was very curious. Turning to her, he asked, "High-risk level, huh? So what will happen to her?" Shudong quickly explained with a radiant smile, "It's just that we have to be a little more careful during monitoring, that's all. I didn't scare you just now, did I? You look remarkably calm. How about I just run an evaluation on you right now? It's just a few questions, that's all. Your eyes are sharp. You realized your assessment had already begun, didn't you?" Shu Dong immediately zeroed in on a crucial point in Thuong Mak's file. "You volunteered to come to our hospital for a checkup. That's actually quite rare. Tell me, what made you decide to come to a psychiatric hospital? You didn't hold back at all, honestly laying out the full extent of your abilities. At first, it started with seeing things others couldn't. These pods over people's heads, and monsters. Later on, it seemed like I gained a kind of power. A power that others couldn't see." Thuong Mak thought to himself, if he wanted to join the authorities, he couldn't hide his abilities forever. In that case, he might as well show his worth as much as possible. As for the risks of exposing his power, he would just have to deal with them himself. He raised his hand, gesturing slightly toward Chu Duong. "I thought it was just a hallucination, so I wanted to check. Can you see the thing on my hand?" She pretended to be intrigued, turning her back to him. "That is truly unexpected. I need to report this to my superiors immediately." The moment she turned, Shu Dong swiftly ordered into her radio, Fire. Thongmak's gaze sharpened as he sensed the killing intent from behind. Before he could react, the bullet slammed into his back with a deafening thud. Thongmak collapsed instantly, offering no resistance. What was that about? Later that day, Chudong sighed, exhausted. I encountered two types of emotional entities I've never seen before. You scared the life out of me, Old Lie. Nice work. Direct hit. Old Lie laughed as he was praised. Everyone worked hard. Oh, right. Why did you have to shoot him, too? He looked pretty normal to me. She fell silent, evaluating him seriously. People who look that normal are the truly terrifying ones. Actually, before this, I reviewed the surveillance footage from when he entered the hospital. Even though he was hiding it well, I still caught issues in some of his unconscious body language. The man asked, confused, "What issues?" Shudong furrowed her brow, stating firmly, "He was talking to someone no one else could see. That's a classic symptom of schizophrenia. Right now, it's his mild personality, but the other one is likely extremely dangerous." Her eyes were glued to the silent body lying on the ground as she continued her analysis. Plus, his emotional power is unlike anything I've ever seen, and what's even scarier is, when he used his emotional power, his emotional monster didn't even appear. This means he has already mastered control over his emotional power. A schizophrenic who has fully mastered an unknown source of emotional power, he is even more terrifying than that girl. We have to neutralize him immediately. Chuduong waved her hand, ordering quickly, "All right, get some men in here to take him away." Take him away? At that very moment, Thongmak, who had been unconscious, suddenly crawled back up. Chuduong's eyes went wide as she stared at him lifting his head. The air in the room suddenly froze. She stumbled backward in terror, crying out in bewilderment, "How are you still okay?" Old Lie shouted to the soldiers watching from above, "The target is active again! The target is active again!" His voice echoed everywhere, warning everyone nearby. Level 1, alert. Level 1, alert. Thunderous footsteps pounded against the floor as rows of gun barrels overhead began to lock onto Thongmak. Daylight whispered helplessly from behind him. "I was just about to tell you not to get up so fast." Thongmak bit his lip, firmly making a choice. If it has to be this way, he quickly raised his hands in a gesture of surrender and shouted, "Don't shoot! I surrender, I surrender." Seeing Thongmak's sincere attitude, Chudong's eyes went round with shock. Old Lie's team above stood there with their mouths agape, confused. No shots were fired, but the sound of heavy chains dragging on the floor rang out. Chudong was incredibly satisfied with the result. As she shackled Thongmak, she sighed, "There's definitely no problem now." She offered a bright smile as she introduced the restraint chain in her hand. "You really do have special powers, but these chains can suppress every type of special ability. You're no different from an ordinary person now. It's really a shame for you." Hearing this, Thongmak observed the chains with curiosity, thinking to himself, "Are these really chains that can suppress all emotional power?" Yet, he felt a wave of suspicion as he sensed something, muttering to himself, "Why do I feel like a massive source of power is constantly pouring into my body from these chains?" Dalai understood his confusion and spoke up. "It's very strange, isn't it? Why are you absorbing the power from the chains?" She whispered into Thongmak's ear with a hint of amusement. "Because the metal used to forge these chains has long since been consumed by emotions. Logic has taken hold. That is why these chains are effective at suppressing other emotional powers. For others, this is a restraint, but for you, it is quite the supplement." Scene shift to another location, the Donghai City Emotional Management Bureau. Inside an office, Duinyan respectfully reports over the phone, "Ms. Tong, I have found the person you asked me to locate. Hai has been admitted to the second hospital and has become a patient there. I is the director of the Donghai City Emotional Management Bureau, Kok Duinghen." He on the other end of the line smirks and asks, "Doesn't the second hospital fall under your jurisdiction?" Duinghen immediately tries to curry favor. "Don't worry, Miss Tong. I will go and demand him right now." The call between the two then ends. He happily stares at her phone screen, muttering, "This is going quite smoothly." Thongmak's skin isn't bad either. Her eyes turn toward the bruised and battered figure, looking expectant as she says, "Before I take away your power, we can still play a little. I'm really looking forward to it. Seeing that delicate face of yours filled with pain and despair." Scene shift to the intensive care unit. The nurse's voice sounds out, trying to reassure Jiaki. "Hang in there, don't give up." She loses patience. immediately sitting up, shaking her head and crying out, "No, I can't hold it in anymore. I really want to know. I truly really want to know how those handsome guys with 8-pack abs take a shower. You must restrain your emotions." Little Lamb, standing nearby, fearfully grips the syringe in her hand and says to Chu Duong, "Sister Chu, this isn't good. Hurry and give her the medication." She is Nurse Little Lamb at the Donghai City Second Psychiatric Hospital. Chu Duong, however, disagrees with Little Lamb's suggestion. "No need to rush. We must try to let the patient control herself with willpower first." Jai Kai is still being controlled by the emotional monster, screaming continuously, "I can't control it. I just really want to know. What's wrong with liking to look at handsome guys?" Shu Dong finally compromises and orders Little Lamb, "All right. Administer the medication." She immediately acts. All right. Little Lamb's hurried footsteps cause the syringe to slip from her hand. Seeing this, Chu Dong is immediately annoyed and shouts, "What are you doing? Ruining things at such a critical moment. She has lost control. Will you take responsibility for that?" Little Lamb is panicked and hurriedly bows her head to apologize. "I am sorry." From her bed, Jai Kai continues to scream, "I can't hold it in anymore. It's over." Right at that moment, a hand reaches out and gently touches Jai Kai's emotional monster. To everyone's shock, Thanka's hand gently calms. The emotional monster with a gentle voice, "Calm down. If you lose control and turn into a monster, you will never see it again." Yenbak sees this and anxiously reminds her, "Doctor, you are being too reckless. She is the head nurse of Ward B at the Donghai City Second Psychiatric Hospital, Yenbak." Thanka simply replies with determination, "I believe in little Ji-Ki." Following her reassurance, Jai Kai's emotional monster fluctuates violently, and shortly after, they suddenly disappear, returning her face to normal. Thanka quickly bends over and gently praises Jai Kai as she recovers. "Good job, little Ji-Ki. I knew it. I knew you could do it. Now the basics are clear." The surrounding nurses are shocked and exclaim, "That is incredible." After everything returns to normal, she picks up the medical report and starts reading it to Ji-Ki, patient named Truong Ji-Ki, constantly obsessed with handsome men. The first episode occurred 1 month ago, coincidentally after meeting a handsome man on the way home. She discovered she could see a vision of that man taking a shower at home. From this, we hypothesize her emotional power is a type of ability similar to clairvoyance, temporarily classified as an unknown emotional entity type 7, with a danger level temporarily assessed as low. Thongmak hears this and asks in utter disbelief, "Just because you saw a handsome guy showering, your parents made you come to a mental hospital?" Ji Kai shyly rubs her head and answers, "Don't make fun of me." Thanka then turns to Thongmak and announces, "Next is you, patient named Thongmak. Emotions are stable, admitted because he sees things ordinary people cannot, possessing powers that ordinary people do not. He was admitted for treatment, suspected of having schizophrenia, but he denies it himself, claiming he only likes talking to himself." She writes in the report with some hesitation, "Emotional power is the ability to condense ice crystals on his hands and release blue flames, temporarily classified as an unknown emotional entity type 7. Let's temporarily assess the danger level as medium. As for the rest, we will continue to monitor." Thanka slowly bends down to reach eye level with Thuong Mak and reassures him, "Don't worry, your emotions are very stable. I believe you will be discharged soon. But until we clarify your abilities, you must keep wearing the chains. Sorry for the trouble." She then brings the report to the third bed, patient named Tran Ku. No bad behavior, no abnormal reactions, other than abnormal blood test results. He looks no different from an ordinary person in any way. Thanka suddenly contradicts her own words when Tran Ku suddenly emits a strange sound. "No, there is still a difference from a normal person. A normal person wouldn't." She sighs and quickly writes the report into the medical file, temporarily classified as an unknown emotional entity type 6. Let's temporarily assess the danger level as low. This is honestly giving me such a headache. Thuong Mak looked at him with curiosity, wondering if this type of emotion entity actually had a low IQ. Or maybe stupidity just counts as a type of emotion? Over on the other side, Ji-Ki suddenly shouted with joy, "I'm not mentally ill, I have superpowers. And my superpower is being able to watch hot guys shower. Is this heaven?" Hearing that, Thanka quickly spoke up to reassure her, "Little Ji-Ki, don't get ahead of yourself." She said seriously, theoretically speaking, all emotion entities are all mentally ill patients. Some are just better at controlling it than others. Some aren't. Thanka raised the notebook in her hand and added, Furthermore, according to Article 4 of the Emotion Entity Secrecy Management Law, the Great Ha Nation has established the Emotion Entity Management Bureau. This is to manage all emotion entities throughout the territory of Great Ha. Our hospital is an agency directly under the Emotion Entity Management Bureau, specializing in treating emotion entities. We ensure you guys don't pose a threat to society. Thuong Mak suddenly asked in confusion, "Do emotion entities have to follow state regulations too?" She nodded seriously and affirmed firmly, "Of course. So you all need to take your treatment seriously. If you go outside and cause trouble, violating the laws of Great Ha." Than Ka lowered her head and informed the 3 patients in the room with a terrifying, threatening tone. By that time, the Donghai City Emotion Entity Management Bureau will come to arrest you directly, and they aren't as gentle as we are, you know. Just keeping your life will be lucky enough. By that point, even I won't be able to protect you. Do you hear me clearly? Her face quickly returned to a gentle expression. All right. If anyone is interested in the Emotion Entity Management Law, just ask the nurse for a copy. Shudong suddenly rushed in and shouted, "Doctor, it's been a long time. I mean, it's urgent. Please come over here right away." Thanka calmly reassured her. "What's wrong? Don't panic, I'm coming." After they left, the hospital room was left with only the sound of Gyaiki's laughter echoing everywhere. Thuong Mak sank into deep thought. So the official organization of Great Ha that she wanted me to join is this Emotion Entity Management Bureau of the Great Ha Nation. Isn't that right? Dalai quickly nodded to confirm the information he had received. That's right, it's amazing. They even have an Emotion Entity Secrecy Management Law. Thuong Mak stared intently at the rules stuck on the book, Article 7 of the Emotion Entity Secrecy Management Law. The Emotion Entity Management Bureau has the authority to govern all emotion entities. The Emotion Entity Management Bureau is affiliated with the corresponding treatment, violence suppression, and judicial agencies, responsible for specific tasks related to emotion entities within the Great Ha Nation, ensuring that emotion entities within the Great Ha Nation comply with state laws while simultaneously arresting, interrogating, and prosecuting those who violate the law. He suddenly brought up a big question. I'm thinking about an issue. If it's really written according to this Emotion Entity Secrecy Management Law, then emotion entities are not allowed to break Great Ha laws. So why is Lutrat still able to live freely and easily outside the law? Hearing this, she chuckled and slowly remarked, "On the surface, of course, it has to be fair and righteous. But on the inside, there are surely all sorts of secret deals. Lutrat staying outside the law is clearly related to the high-ranking officials of the Emotion Entity Management Bureau. How deep this rabbit hole goes, no one knows." Thuong Mak immediately seized upon an even bigger loophole. "How do you know Lutrat killed my mother?" Dalai didn't hesitate and answered honestly, "In the police station's files. The police had suspected Lutrat for a long time, but then the case was transferred to a secret department, so the investigation was stopped. That secret department is, of course, the Great Ha Emotion Entity Management Bureau." Thuong Mak's face suddenly stiffened, and he stammered, "Wait, Lutrat's backer is the high-ranking officials within the Emotion Entity Management Bureau, and this hospital is a facility under that same bureau. The emotion entity seemed to suddenly realize the danger inside. So aren't we definitely dead if we stay here?" Dalai replied blankly, "I guess so." Thuong Mak then yelled in annoyance, "You're the one who told me to come here." She still cheerfully and slowly said, "The specific reason, I don't remember very clearly. Because before meeting you, my memories were constantly fading, but I just remembered that even though there were risks, I decided to take a gamble, which is why I let you come here." Dalai shrugged seriously and said, "Well, we're already here anyway. Now the only way is to focus on absorbing the power of these chains. As for other things, just trust the me from before I lost my memory." Scene changed to another location. The coffee in Thanka's hand was pushed toward Duingen. She bowed respectfully to him. "Bureau Chief, please enjoy." Duingen slowly raised the coffee cup and took a small sip, then suddenly went mad and threw the coffee cup hard against the floor, shattering it. Thanka immediately trembled and stammered, "Bureau Chief, what's wrong with you?" He emphasized with an irritable tone, "What's wrong?" A stack of documents from Duingen's hand was thrown straight at her along with an angry voice. "What's wrong? Can't you even figure that out yourself? See for yourself." He yelled, unable to contain his rage. "Look closely at what you people have done, damn it!" Outside, Chu Duong, who was eavesdropping, gritted her teeth and muttered uncomfortably, "Isn't he just a bureau chief? Does he have to yell at people like that every time he comes here?" Tu Lum, standing beside her, was also bewildered and asked herself, "Why is it like this? Is the director planning to just ignore it?" Shudong explained in a low voice with a look of reluctance. The director can't handle it either. In terms of rank, he's actually the director's superior. The hospital's operating funds all have to be approved by them. The director has no choice. She doesn't want to see him anymore, so now Dr. Lau is the one who handles him. She added anxiously, while Thanka inside was trembling with fear. He shows some respect to the director, but he's never kind to Dr. Lau. Dr. Lau is terrified every time she sees him. Duingen stood up unsteadily, emphasizing every word with irritation. Just last night, this person caused a murder on the Emperor of the Sea Ship. This morning, he fled into the hospital, and you people actually processed his hospital admission. Unbelievable. He kept shouting with harsh, offensive language. Don't you know what kind of power is behind the Emperor of the Sea Ship? Don't you know he's a murderer? This is already a diplomatic incident. Are you unaware of that? Duingen suddenly fell silent and let out a weary sigh. With a stern face, he ordered Thanka, who was kneeling on the ground, "Hand him over to me right now, or don't blame me for being ruthless." Duingen held his head high, full of proud confidence, and thought to himself, it was easy to handle, but this time she must be scared to death, to the point where she can't even tremble anymore. Suddenly, a drop of fresh blood dripped onto his shoulder. Terrified, Duingen quickly touched the bloodstain and wondered, what is this? Is something strange going on? Is it a hallucination? Suddenly, streams of blood began to flow one after another onto his body. Just as Duingen regained his composure, the blood vanished, leaving him in terror. It's gone. Was it a hallucination? Duingen panicked and asked himself, what on earth is happening? Before he could finish his thought, the blood reappeared all around the room, turning a bright, deathly crimson, and the floor began to be soaked in fresh blood. Before his fearful eyes, Thanka no longer looked scared. She stood up powerfully. She closed her eyes tight and said sarcastically, "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" "No, I am actually afraid." Thanka raised her face, looking straight at Duingen with a challenge. "I'm afraid that I won't be able to hold back and will kill you." Duingen backed away in fear, gritting his teeth in disbelief. I thought to himself, is this emotional power? We are clearly in an office, yet she looks like she's standing in a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. What kind of emotional power is this? Images of the gentle Thanka from the past suddenly flashed through his mind. Dr. Lau Thanka, I've only met her during work meetings. She was calm, gentle, often smiling, and well-mannered. She should have been a very easy person to deal with, and that's exactly why I purposely sought her out. Duingen's gaze swept back toward the current Thansa. He thought suspiciously. Is the person standing in front of me really her? He gritted his teeth in fear, his whole body tense, when suddenly the office door swung wide open and the bloody office returned to normal. Manhwa walked in with a cane, smiling and saying, "Chief Cuck, why did you come without letting me know in advance?" She was the director of the 2nd Psychiatric Hospital, Donghai City, Dep Manhwa. The atmosphere in the room fell into a terrifying silence. Duingen glanced around in a panic, thinking, the mountain of corpses and sea of blood has disappeared. Manhwa continued in a husky voice, "Chief Cuck, you're here for Thuong Mak, aren't you?" She quickly continued, not giving him a chance to object. The colleague in charge of the background check told me that the person Thuong Mak killed was named Lu Trat. I was an emotional entity who had already obtained our Daiha citizenship a few years ago. Lu Trat is not protected by our country's laws. Furthermore, the incident took place in international waters on the Emperor of the Sea Ship, Thuong Mak. First, he did not harm state property. Second, he did not harm any of our citizens. Therefore, he absolutely did not violate the Emotional Entity Secret Management Law. Duingen explained this slowly, showing a bit of hesitation. But the pressure from the Emperor of the Sea Ship, it's quite high. You know the power behind them well. The upper leadership of our management bureau has demanded that I must give them an explanation. Today, her cane suddenly slammed hard against the floor, and Manhwa's face went cold and pale as she said emotionlessly, "You're talking about the Tong family, aren't you? Truly pathetic, having no backbone. Are we, the great Shia, supposed to care about what the Sea Emperor's fleet thinks regarding our internal affairs?" Her words were sharp, striking right at the heart of Duingen. It made him grit his teeth in a panic. "And you, I remember that Liu Jia was a suspect back then, so why did you let him transfer his citizenship? Furthermore, he has been acting with such impunity in the East Sea for so long. Are you blind?" Manhwa slowly let out a threat. Do you need me to report this to our superiors right now? Immediately after that, Duingen panicked and scrambled away under her gaze. Director, please, take your time. A mocking smile appeared on Manthu's face as she muttered, "That brat actually dared to bring up such nonsense to me." At that moment, Thanka beamed and ran over to hug her, acting all sweet. "You really are the best, Dean." Manthu sternly tapped her head with her cane and reminded her, "Keep your emotions in check. Do you want to lose control?" Thanka sulked and whispered, "I've been suppressing them for so many years, I'm allowed to breathe for a second, right? Besides, recently, I feel like my mood has finally started to stabilize." She didn't let up, loudly lecturing, "Thanka, this is the most critical moment for you. You must maintain control of your emotions. You absolutely cannot afford to be negligent." She had no choice but to nod obediently. "I know." Anka gasped in surprise. "So, that really was a world-class battle that broke out on the Sea Emperor's ship back then? And even the polluted East Sea was stirred up by that event? Was the one who reached the world-class level Thuong Mak? Perhaps his goal from the beginning was the Sea Emperor's ship." Manthu pondered, then carefully analyzed. "I don't know the specific details. But Thuong Mak isn't world-class. According to the records, he has lived in East Sea City since he was young, and he has annual health checkups. The latest checkup still showed him as a normal person, so it couldn't possibly have been him." She suddenly made a sharp assertion. "Then there must be a world-class emotion entity standing behind him." Thanka became even more curious upon hearing this. If that's truly the case, then what exactly is that world-class entity behind him trying to do? Are they risking a massive war with the Sea Emperor just to save Thuong Mak? Moreover, if there really is a world-class emotion entity backing him, why would he need to come to the two institutes? Her brows suddenly furrowed with a major suspicion. Could it be the next target of that world-class emotion entity? Is it our two institutes? The cane in Manthu's hand tapped her head once more. She slumped down onto a flower bed and scolded angrily, "Look at the mess you've made of the flowers I told you to plant. And you even dared to hide them in the corner. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Thenka Ano Yingli cried out to remind Manthu, "Dean, we're talking about something serious here." She just calmly closed her eyes to reassure her, "Rest assured, that world-class emotion entity is not at the two institutes. If it were within the perimeter of the two institutes, I certainly would have detected it by now." On the other hand, Thuong Mak Thanka impatiently complained, "This Thuong Mak guy definitely had no good intentions just now. We really should have handed him over." Her hand gently supported a withered branch as she slowly said, "You, child. Emotion entities are like plants. Some types can grow strong and healthy on their own without external influence, but others need someone to support them. Otherwise, they cannot stand tall." Manthu added with sympathy, "This child is very pitiful. His parents died young. He had to work from a very early age, and just as he started to make some progress, he was hunted by an emotion entity. By the way, that Liuja is the prime suspect in his mother's murder." Her gaze blurred as she softly analyzed, "How could it be such a coincidence? It's obvious someone set this up. Many secret organizations or cults choose suitable candidates, especially those like Thuong Mak, people carrying deep grudges, to help them seek revenge in exchange for their loyalty." Manthu took her hand off the pot and stated firmly, "Thuong Mak might have come to the two institutes with a mission, but as a citizen of Great Shia, we cannot abandon him. If he loses his way, we must pull him back." Scene change to the East Sea City Emotion Management Bureau. Duingen sat angrily in front of the computer screen repeatedly. He screamed, "Damn it, what on earth is her background? The internal network of the Emotion Management Bureau must have her file. I'll just take a look and find out right away." His eyes suddenly widened as he saw the information on the screen. Dai gritted his teeth in anger. How could this be? Do I really not have enough access permissions? His phone screen suddenly lit up with an incoming call from Miss Tong. Dai immediately reported with a respectful tone, "Miss Tong, this matter will still require some time to resolve. Please, don't say that. I can handle it. I will certainly cooperate." After that, the call was disconnected. He slammed his hand onto the table in frustration. Damn it. Changing the scene to another location, Triu Dien and Hu He were leisurely enjoying hot tea. She suddenly smiled and made a request. "Mr. Triu, I'll have to trouble you and your Kak Lien Jiao organization from now on. My lord said that in any case that old hag is quite an eyesore. We might as well speed up the plan and just flatten both institutions." Hu Ha, looking quite expectant, added, "And we can just bring Thuong Mak back while we're at it." Tru Dian's face twisted into a smirk as he nodded. No problem. Scene shift to the next evening, at Ward B of Donghai City's psychiatric hospital, inside a patient room. Thuong Mak was focused on absorbing power from the red suppression. Daylai, standing beside him, exclaimed with satisfaction, "Not bad, your rational emotional power has increased quite a bit. Keep it up. It won't be long before you need the laws." Hearing this, he asked in confusion. Laws? She quickly explained, the growth of different emotional entities requires different conditions, like how to absorb power and how to control it. They all have a complete system of methods. Otherwise, you'll lose control. And there is a special growth plan specifically for this unique type of emotional entity. It's called a law. Daylai thought for a moment and continued, even though before, you borrowed my power to temporarily reach the world-class level, that wasn't power you could truly hold. If you want to truly master immense power, you must follow the methods provided by the laws, digesting the power step by step to grow gradually. As she finished speaking, Thuong Mak's neck suddenly made a sound, followed by the appearance of scales. His rational emotional power was accumulating too quickly. Without the law of reason, he would lose control very soon. The air fell into a sudden silence. Thuong Mak, puzzled, muttered to himself, losing control of the law of rational emotional power? Don't you know? Daylai shook her head and waved her hand. I don't remember anymore. The related memories are gone. I tried to recall and continued, back when I borrowed your power, I remember using feelings of rage to maintain stability. So can't I do the same thing? She quickly answered Thuong Mak's question. That's true, but the most basic law for a rational emotional entity is to constantly experience other emotions at high intensity. But the rage you've been building up for all these years has already been spent. Nothing special has happened recently, and you haven't had any emotional fluctuations, so you can't use that method right now. So just get some rest for today. Just then, Shudong's voice rang out from nearby. Still awake so late? Little Jiaki is so restless, always kicking off the blankets in her sleep. Thuong Mak nodded quickly. I couldn't sleep, so I was sitting for a bit. He suddenly asked with curiosity, Sister Chu, why haven't I seen the doctor for so long today? She looked up at him and said, the doctor was called away to a meeting today. I don't even know what kind of meeting it is, but they haven't come back yet. He suddenly remembered something. He asked just as Chu Dong's back was turning away. Oh, right, Sister Chu, you're a normal person, right? How can you see emotional power? Chu Dong didn't explain, just smiled vaguely. I've been through a few things, but it's all in the past now. It's the same for you. You have to keep going. The hard times will pass. Daylai watched her with her arms crossed, whispering to herself, behind that calm exterior, who knows how much misfortune she's had to endure. She slowly added, in this world, being able to see it is already a kind of power in itself. This type of power, if not based on a higher standing, like when you borrowed my power and could see the truth of the world, then you need both experience and luck. You can't afford to lack either one. After what happened with your mother, you got lucky and managed to glimpse a corner of the truth. Da Lai's voice carried an emotion different from usual because of that. If a normal person can see emotional power, it's highly likely that it comes with misfortune. At the same time, if you don't possess the status yet but see too much, that in itself is a kind of misfortune. Thuong Mak pressed his lips together, silently watching Chu Duong's lonely back. Suddenly, she turned around and held something out to him. Right, I looked at your file. This is a gift for you. Thuong Mak looked at the gift, full of questions. A necklace? Why are you giving me this? Chu Dong held it out in front of him and said, it's not just a necklace, look here. Try pressing it. Thuong Mak's eyes widened when he pressed the button. She held up the necklace with a faint glow and said happily, actually, it's a little light. It's just a small thing, but I hope it can shine a sliver of joy into the darkness surrounding you. She let out a helpless sigh. Thanks, Sister Chu, she said, then stepped outside to talk to Jolin. Jolin, has the patient in bed 12 taken their medicine yet? Jolin quickly replied, yes, they've already taken it. Dai Li teasingly leaned in, playful as ever. Touched, aren't you, Changmo? Aren't you moved? That nurse of yours isn't half bad, you know. He looked up at her again and wondered to himself, what's the point of this? Dai Li sighed helplessly, should I say, as expected from a man of pure reason? But you're going to lose control if you keep living like this. Jackie suddenly shrieked and bolted upright. Seeing this, Changmo asked with concern, are you all right? Sweat poured down her face like a fountain, but she forced herself to say firmly, it's nothing. Just a nightmare. A scream echoed from somewhere else. Sholin let out a weary, helpless sigh. What now? Why can't any of you just sleep peacefully? The moment she finished, her entire body was shoved backward by an unseen hand amidst a massive explosion. Changmo's eyes went wide with terror, while Jackie gasped in utter disbelief. On the other side, Sholin was teetering, her body tilted back as she crashed hard onto the floor, her arm trailing behind her. Changmo couldn't believe it and muttered, "What just happened?" A thought struck his heart, filling him with dread. It felt as if the entire room had been wiped clean by someone. Sholin stared blankly at the arm that had shoved her, stammering, "Sister, Sister Chu." Her eyes welled up with tears, unable to contain the grief as she cried out for Sister Chu in her mind. The image from a moment ago flashed back, clearer than ever. Chu Yang had pushed her out of danger, leaving her arm behind. Broken-hearted and in shock, Sholin let out a gut-wrenching scream, "Sister Chu." Suddenly, a patient named Han Leung appeared before her, stepping out of the rubble, laughing hysterically with a terrifying sound. A manifestation erupted violently from Han Leung's body. Dali quickly warned, "Changmo, be careful." That's an emotion manifestation of joy that's lost all control. The joy manifestation can disintegrate any matter. That sound from just now was caused by him. Hai gasped in disbelief. Is it really that destructive? Another explosion rocked the area, sending debris raining down everywhere as everyone scrambled to cover their heads. As the fire died down, the scene finally revealed itself to Changmo. The hallway. The hospital was crawling with patients who had lost control. Sholin reacted in a panic. The patients have lost control. They've all lost it. I have to call the security team. Changmo reached out and touched her, his voice chilling. I'm afraid the security team can't even save themselves anymore. Gunshots, combined with this abnormal state of losing control. The two institutes. Changmo's final confirmation left. Sholin frozen. We've been ambushed. She slumped to the ground in despair. We're under attack? How did it come to this? Where is the dean? Sholin screamed in helplessness. Where is the dean? Dali crossed her arms and sighed. Too bad she can't see it. Their dean, following the direction of her gaze, was engaged in a fierce battle, far too busy to help. Suddenly, a blazing red orb appeared in the sky. It spread across the hospital sky, then violently collided with the building's exterior wall. Minthu looked up at the sky and spoke. Blood-colored thorns, the emotion manifestation of hatred. Are you with the Black Lotus sect? Triodian replied with sharp, icy eyes. The Black Lotus sect. We've been in hiding for over 15 years, yet you haven't forgotten us. Honestly, I'm quite touched. I am the new leader of the Black Lotus sect here in East Sea City. Today, I've come to take your life and level these two institutes. Minthu radiated killing intent and said coldly, You've got a big mouth. Wicked. Sinister threads sprouted from her hands. I will bind your emotional monster within the mind realm. Dark energy surged from her body as she decided to stake everything on her physical form. A new version of Minthu emerged. That is the biggest mistake you've ever made. The scene cut back to the patient's room. Changmo communicated through his thoughts. You mean the dean is currently battling a world-class enemy? Won't the destructive power of two world-class entities level these two institutes? We'll be caught in the crossfire. Dali glanced at him and replied, Don't worry. It seems they're both in sync. They've chosen to pour most of their power into fighting within the mind realm, so it shouldn't affect us. But I have to warn you. Right now I have 0 strength left. From here on, you have to manage on your own. If you die, we all die. Beside them, Sholin started trembling and cried out, Why hasn't the dean come to save us yet? How did it end up like this? Jiaki was terrified by her breakdown and hurried to ask, Nurse, please pull yourself together. Think of a way to calm them down. She had completely lost her composure. There's no way to calm them down. They've completely lost control. Their emotional power will tear us to shreds. Little Lamb dropped to her knees, sobbing that we were all going to die. Thuong Mak looked at the scene, sighed in frustration, and then he forcefully snapped the chains with his bare hands, slammed his feet hard against the ground, and then, with a massive hand, he shoved the guy's head down. The guy collapsed to the ground right in front of everyone. Jiai was left completely stunned, her mouth wide open. Little Lamb was so shocked she couldn't even close her mouth. The air felt frozen and awkward. Thuong Mak turned and urged the two of them to stop spacing out. Move now. Little Lamb stared at Thuong Mak, wondering, What on earth did you just do? Jai-kai excitedly praised him. "You're so cool." Thuong Mak looked back and replied calmly, "It's nothing. I just calmed them down." She was absolutely shocked, her eyes widening. Your emotional power, it can actually make out-of-control emotional entities calm down. That's incredible. At the same time, Daylai leaned in to analyze a joy-type emotional entity. It can disintegrate any matter. It's your biggest threat. If his ability hits you, you'll be torn to pieces. Prioritizing him was a very smart move. Thuong Mak was curious, disintegrating everything? That's just absurd. Doesn't that make him invincible? She hesitated, then honestly replied, "Well, emotional power doesn't count as physical matter, so if you use your own power, you might be able to block his attacks." Just then, an orb flew toward them. She screamed, "Thuong Mak, watch out!" An explosion sent them flying backward. Jai-kai called out to Thuong Mak in panic. Little Lamb was confused, crying out, "How did it end up like this?" A man suddenly appeared and started attacking them like a madman. The scene in the hallway grew increasingly chaotic as the out-of-control patients fought each other wildly. The chaotic brawl spiraled completely out of control. Suddenly, another orb flew in, and someone opened their mouth wide, ready to swallow it. Sparks sprayed across the space. Thuong Mak looked up, watching the orbs. A massive explosion erupted, and a hand reached out from within it, grabbing someone by the face. He stood high above, looking down with icy eyes. The person who had been so vicious moments ago finally collapsed. Thuong Mak turned back to the others and asked, "Are you guys okay?" Jai-kai exclaimed with admiration, "That was amazing." Little Lamb couldn't help but be impressed. Not only can you stop other emotional entities from losing control, but your defensive capabilities are terrifying too. What kind of emotional entity are you anyway? Suddenly, he sensed something was wrong. A black, viscous slime dripped down next to Jai-kai. A patient was frantically venting their emotions. With vacant eyes, the patient swiped their hands crazily across her face. He instantly realized what it was and shouted, "Careful! That's a sorrow emotional monster. It can make everything sink into despair." Sorrow monsters usually don't move. If we don't provoke it, we should be fine. Daylai watched it and warned, "Your resistance to sadness isn't very high. Don't let that black liquid touch you. It's probably been infected by the Black East Sea, but it's still weak. It's fine, let's go, quickly." At the same time, Jai-kai suddenly stepped off the bed and praised Thuong Mak. "You're so calm." She agreed wholeheartedly. "Yeah, good thing you're here." He looked at them calmly and said, "Honestly, I'm actually really worried. You guys just can't tell." She burst into amused laughter. "You've still got the heart to joke around?" Thuong Mak replied firmly, "I'm not joking." Suddenly, Jai-kai remembered, "Wait, where's Tran-ku?" He glanced toward the pile of rubble upon hearing the name, then calmly concluded, "I'm afraid he's dead." Little Lamb couldn't hold back her tears. How could this happen? "I was fine just a moment ago. Why are Sister Chu and Tran-ku both dead?" Suddenly, Jai-kai lunged forward, grabbed her shoulders, and shouted, "Calm down! The most important thing right now is to survive. With Thuong Mak here, we'll be okay." Right then, Tran-ku grabbed his thigh and said, "Exactly, with this guy here. We'll definitely make it out alive." She was startled and blurted out, "Where the hell did you come from?" He answered innocently, "I was sleeping. Then I accidentally rolled off the bed. When I heard the explosion, I just curled up in the corner." "Whatever. Stop talking. Let's run." The four of them started bolting for the exit. Suddenly, Thuong Mak turned back and asked, "Little Lamb, do you have Dr. Lau's phone number?" She stuttered, "What? Yes." Then Little Lamb frantically cried out, "I can't call. There's no signal. No way. How could this be?" His eyes turned sharp. It might be a signal jammer. "We can't hear any more gunfire either." The security team might have already been taken out by the attackers. Just then, Jai-kai stopped, panting heavily. "I can't take it anymore. This running is killing me." She agreed, chiming in, "I can't take it anymore either. Let's take a break. Aren't you too tired?" He glanced at Daylai and communicated through his thoughts. "I just realized lately that I don't get winded even after heavy exertion. Could it be because I've become an emotion entity?" Daylai calmly analyzed. Different types of emotion entities cause various changes to the body, and rational strength can enhance control in every aspect. So your stamina has indeed improved. Thuong Mak looked over, leaving him blank, while Tran-ku casually asked, "Is it because your physical constitution was already good, or is it because of your emotional power?" With sweat streaming down her face, Jai-kai concluded, "The sound of gunfire might reach the clinic area. People might call the police. Should we find somewhere to hide? She raised a hand to wipe away her sweat. Actually, by night, the whole hospital building is empty. Only our Zone B has people. Because the director is here, everyone feels safe. Director, we must go find the director. He emphasized in a firm voice. Listen to me. Searching for the director is useless. The director hasn't appeared for so long. They must have been cornered by the enemy. This second hospital was already remote, and now it's like an isolated island. Those people planned this in advance. We have to get out of here first. Tranku naively blurted out, Zone B only has one director who is an emotion entity. That's not safe at all. Tulum immediately retorted, that's not true. Actually, our doctor and head nurse are also powerful emotion entities. It's just that the doctor happens not to be here today. Right then, she realized something keenly. That's right, the head nurse. We still have the head nurse. She will definitely protect us. Upon hearing that, Thongmak's expression sank involuntarily. The head nurse? It seems like I rarely see her. So both the doctor and she are powerful emotion entities. Just how powerful are they? Behind them, another patient who had lost emotional control appeared, but he just casually reached out a hand and managed to stop them. That person collapsed in front of Thongmak again. In that moment, Tulum recognized a familiar face and rushed over frantically. Mock tears streamed down her face. Tulum's eyes trembled as she painfully gasped, She's not breathing anymore. Kai was frozen by the sight, and Tranqu's eyes widened in shock. Thongmak fell into a long silence, then lowered his head and said, I'm thinking about one thing. How did the enemy manage to make so many patients lose control all at once? Tulum replied helplessly, I don't know either. They all take their medicine on time, she explained calmly. Actually, these medications are the same as the chains that used to bind you before. They can all suppress emotional power, so the patients shouldn't have been able to lose control all of a sudden. Thongmak keenly grasped the key point. Taking medication on time, they probably tampered with the medicine. Because the dosage time is the same, the time it takes effect is naturally the same. Tulum turned back to look at him with certainty. The medicine has been strictly inspected. Moreover, to make different emotion entities lose control, they would need specific drugs for each person. Kai, hearing this, fell into confusion. What do you mean by specific drugs? Her gaze dimmed as she replied, It means giving the drug containing anger to the angry emotion entity and the drug containing joy to the happy one. Only then would the emotion entity lose control due to a sudden surge in power. Tulum recalled the process. Our medicine is categorized and labeled by the head nurse, then given to the nurses in each room to distribute to patients. The enemy basically couldn't have done it. Suddenly, she stopped. Her pupils dilated, and her voice trembled violently. No way could it be the head nurse, he said from behind in a dangerous tone. It seems that's the only explanation. The head nurse is the traitor. Thongmak analyzed her scheme of conspiring from within and without, distributing the drug that causes loss of control so the patients would all spiral out of control simultaneously. His voice echoed into the hallway. This also explains why we weren't affected, because the three of us are unregistered types of emotion entities. So she had no way of drugging us. Let's go. Next, we have to be careful of the head nurse. Outside, the sky was a deep blue with bright stars. They dashed forward frantically, almost at the exit. In front of them was the light of faith and hope, but then suddenly, their footsteps halted. Hovering above their heads was someone dressed as a nurse, a terrifying face accompanied by soulless eyes. Kai fearfully concluded, That looks like the head nurse. How is she flying? Is she trying to deal with us? Tulum gritted her teeth in resentment, then shouted, Head nurse, why did you do this? Why did you betray the two hospitals? Sister Chu Mak, they are all dead. Do these things mean nothing to you? She kept questioning. Head nurse, say something. The head nurse at that very moment. Kai keenly noticed, Wait, something's not right. It looks like she isn't floating in midair, but there's something on her. Thongmak, who had been silent, finally spoke. So you all didn't see it? The head nurse isn't floating in the air. She is being held up in midair by blood-colored thorns piercing through her body. Her whole body was covered in blood-red threads. Finally, he concluded, She's dead. Tulum collapsed on the spot. How could deep down he had his own judgment, likely silenced, aren't they? Suddenly, Thongmak saw a hand floating in the air. His pupils became involuntarily terrified as countless people fell from the sky to the ground, the space covered in a gloomy red. Thongmak felt a wave of confusion. Thinking this was some mysterious person, he said, "So, you've finally shown yourself, huh?" Red threads suddenly sprouted around Thongmak inside the empty, frigid room. His eyes narrowed in caution as strawberry smoothie splashed everywhere. A look of wariness flickered in his eyes before he glanced to the side. A realization struck him. A figure appeared within his line of sight, making his eyes widen in shock as he stared at the person. He immediately swung his arm backward, unleashing a surge of energy. That power converged into a massive mass in the center of the room, when suddenly, a dark, shadowy energy appeared, engulfing the other power. Just then, Elder Lu let out a smug grin and remarked, "This guy is nothing special, just like most people when faced with an attack from out of nowhere." He panicked and used his powers aimlessly. And they wanted me to personally bring him in? Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he spotted something behind him. High in the sky, streams of blue light emerged from that previous surge of power. A few seconds later, inside the empty room, a puzzled voice echoed, "They disappeared?" Elder Lu bowed his head, shoved his hands into his pockets, and smirked, realizing, so that's how it is. Using fire as a distraction to make a run for it. Pretty quick reactions. But he bared his teeth in a smug declaration, "You aren't getting away outside a building in the quiet of the night." Men were hanging suspended in midair. Tucked in a corner, Thongmak and his group pressed themselves against the wall, their breathing ragged and heavy. Exhausted, Tulam braced herself against the wall and asked, "Thongmak, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly pull us back to run?" At that, he noticed something. At the same time, Kai spoke up. "I think I saw sharp red thorns on Thongmak." Intrigued by her words, Tulam followed up. "Sharp red thorns? I didn't see anything at all." But Thongmak just tried to reassure them. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Daylai smirked, looking back to praise her. "Good eye, Jaiki. To be able to spot the thorns, is that because of some special emotional power?" As for Tulam, she almost missed it. She saw absolutely nothing. She suddenly turned to look at Tranchu judgingly. As for him, it's amazing. Even I don't understand what state he's in right now. Thongmak silently peered through the window glass, thinking to himself, better to deal with what's right in front of us first. I didn't see any of those thorns. Where did those come from? He clenched his fist so tightly the sharp thorns shattered, but his mind kept racing. And when I pulled them out, they just vanished. On the door nearby, a red branch with thorns kept blocking the way. The even more troublesome thing was, I don't know when it started, but Sector B has been surrounded by blood-colored thorns. Thongmak placed his hand on the glass, watching intently, his hand slowly rising higher, trying to get a better look inside. Tulam saw his actions and immediately leaned over to whisper, "Thongmak, what are you doing?" As he stood there in deep thought, wondering, am I overthinking this? But the very next second, Thongmak's hand was embedded with sharp thorns from that same branch. He slumped down, clutching his arm, while Gyaiki asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Thongmak quietly pulled out the thorns one by one, thinking to himself, as I thought, I can't be exposed to these thorns. If I am, blood-colored thorns will grow from my body after a while, and this time it's even worse than before. He wondered, what on earth are these things? Standing nearby, Daylai nonchalantly replied, I seem to remember it being a power born from the emotion of hatred, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't look at me like that. I've got amnesia, remember, at that point. Thongmak's face turned helpless and speechless, while she kept muttering, Why don't you believe me? Never mind. Now isn't the time to talk about that. Jaikai watched him for a moment and asked, Thongmak, why aren't you saying anything? Tulam stood by and didn't hesitate to chime in. The report said he was suspected of having schizophrenia. Could it be that he's having a breakdown right now? Thongmak looked over and gave a response that took them both by surprise. I'll explain the situation to you all. He calmly analyzed every action he'd just taken. Giant blood-colored thorns have surrounded Sector B. It must be the power of an emotional entity born of hatred. As long as you're spotted by these thorns, about 5 to 6 seconds later, sharp blood-colored thorns will keep growing all over your body, until you die. The guard and the head nurse died exactly like that. I was attacked in the same way just a moment ago, so we absolutely must avoid those blood-colored thorns. Jaikai sat down on the ground, bewildered. So doesn't that mean we're trapped here? Sholin, sitting nearby, remarked, These blood-colored thorns, they're manifestations of resentment. I feel like I've seen these before. Suddenly, her eyes filled with fear. Sholin froze as a realization hit her. I remember now. Now it's the Black Lotus cult, the other three immediately asked in unison. The Black Lotus cult? Trembling, she continued to explain. In the two academies, we have internal files on various emotional manifestation forces. The Black Lotus cult is one of those twisted, evil groups. Over 15 years ago, they plotted to destroy Donghai City. They caused a powerful sorrow entity to spiral out of control, shrouding the city in darkness. After their plan was foiled, they went into hiding. They are all manifestations of resentment, and their emotional power takes the form of these blood-red thorns. Hearing this, a thoughtful glint appeared in Thwongmak's eyes. He calculated silently. So, the darkening of Donghai was their doing. Dalai nonchalantly brushed her hair aside and chimed in, Black Lotus cult manifestations of resentment. There's something important about them I can't quite recall. Memory loss is such a pain. Suddenly, sharp thorns pierced into Thwongmak's body. He froze for a few seconds, completely stunned, having no idea what was happening. I kept questioning himself internally, Thorns? What's going on? I wasn't even attacked by anything sharp. And why was I the only one hit from the start? From far away, another sharp thorn shot forward. Dalai's eyes were fixed, staring blankly at something approaching her, a strange, spherical shape moving rapidly. She pointed in that direction and shouted a warning, I see it over there. Thwongmak reached out, unleashing his power. Fire engulfed the area, nearly obscuring a small red object. As he stopped, Thwongmak looked up and asked, I think I just scorched something. What was that? Dalai kept a cold expression as she explained her deduction. That was an eye condensed from the enemy's emotional power. Its stealth capabilities are quite high, which is why you couldn't see it. If I'm not mistaken, the enemy can also see you through that eye. Causing thorns to sprout from his body, Thwongmak's frame was now pierced by countless glowing red spikes. He frantically kept using his flames to burn the objects away. Yet, Dalai's voice rang out with guidance, there's still more over there. Dust filled the room, forcing Sholin to duck and scream, Thwongmak, what are you doing? Why do you keep setting fires? She froze as she began to realize something was wrong. Wait, have you lost control too? Sholin looked toward Thwongmak as someone else reminded her. That's not it. The thorns on him keep multiplying. He's being attacked. Even as more thorns appeared all over his body, he stubbornly kept using his flames to counter the invisible entities. Thwongmak's body began to dodge through the air. Suddenly, a section of the wall cracked, and he was sent flying through the air, his silhouette gradually being swallowed by a black circle. Elsewhere, Elder Lu watched on calmly, offering his commentary. I didn't expect you to spot my eyes filled with hatred, but it's a pity I have so many. A look of excitement flickered in his eyes as he declared, like a shadow, yet leaving no trace. This is the power of hatred. Go ahead, keep struggling and trying to run. But in the end, there is only one outcome. The sharp thorns piercing Thwongmak's body multiplied. For the current Elder Lu, this was like waiting for a fish to stop flopping in the net. By now, he had collapsed, his body slumped over, unable to hold himself up any longer. He slammed into the ground and the people around him rushed over in a panic, screaming his name. In the dark of the night, with men hanging suspended in the air, a heavy silence fell over the room as everyone seemed to break down. Thwongmak lay sprawled on the ground with thorns embedded deep in his skin. Kai buried her face in her hands, sobbing, Who is doing this to us? She looked up and screamed at the sky, Who? Then, she suddenly froze, as if she had discovered something. Kai stared blankly into the sky, her face hollow as she stammered, I see them, there are so many. Despite the confused stares of everyone around her, she kept talking. So many red eyes. Those red eyes keep circling us, watching us in silence. She looked around the room. Those eyes were everywhere. Not only that, but from outside the room, countless eyes were staring in through the windows. Kai's tears had stopped falling, but her gaze remained vacant. She slumped into the corner, hugging her head and screaming in terror. Seeing this, Tulam called out in confusion, trying to make sense of the situation. Kai, are you okay? Don't tell me you've caught the sickness too? She widened her eyes in bewilderment. How can this be? Thwongmak is like this. Kai is like this, but there's nothing there, right? You all are just hallucinating because of the sickness. That's what it has to be. It must be. Daylight stood calmly to the side, a smirk playing on her lips. I didn't think Gi would be able to see those eyes. But it doesn't matter. It's all over anyway. Over there. Thongmak slowly opened his eyes, thoughts racing through his mind. These thorns are truly bizarre. They don't affect anything but me. The floor, my clothes. They don't interact with the thorns at all. If I weren't in such agony and unable to move, I'd think I was hallucinating. I can't take this anymore. Do you have any other way? Daylight drifted down to the ground and replied honestly, "That's it. I didn't lie to you. My power was exhausted out at sea." Thongmak glanced at her, sensing something strange. "But you don't seem worried at all. Does it not affect you if I die?" Daylight squeezed her eyes shut and offered a gentle smile. "No. If you die, I die too. But worrying is useless." She rested Thongmak's head on her lap to reassure him. "Don't worry. No matter what your final fate is, I will always be by your side." But a second later, his face was pressed firmly against the floor. Suddenly, Thongmak gave an order that stunned everyone. "Jaikai, Sister Tulam, Tranquil, all of you, get out of here now." Ignoring the thorns still stuck in his body, he began issuing instructions. "I suspect the enemy's target was me from the start. The thorns on me aren't growing anymore. They don't intend to kill me. They just want to incapacitate me. They want to take me alive." Everyone snapped back to reality, ready to follow Thongmak's lead, provided that they didn't get in his way as he tried to escape. Then maybe we can survive. Jiakai's eyes widened as she realized that, indeed, the thorns had only sprouted on Thongmak from the beginning. But the idea of running away alone. Tulam repeated the words as soon as she heard them. "Run away alone." The words echoed in her head, never stopping. "That's right. I have to run away alone." Suddenly, Tulam clutched her head and screamed, "I can't do it! Who can save us?" Jiakai watched Tulam's breakdown and softly called out, "Sister Tulam." Meanwhile, Tranku stood up straight and took a few steps forward. Drawing everyone's attention to him, he helped Thongmak up, struggling to drag them both toward the exit. Jiakai asked in surprise, "Tranku, what are you doing?" He walked as he replied, "Getting Thongmak out of here." She warned them in terror, "You can't. It's surrounded by those eyes right now. Those eyes have already seen us. They can make thorns sprout on us at any moment. The only reason we're safe is because the enemy's target is Thongmak, if we take Thongmak with us. The next target will be us." Jiakai sank to her knees in the middle of the room, crying out helplessly, "We can't escape anymore." Tranku just looked in that direction with a blank expression, then reassured and urged them, "Stay optimistic. If we don't try, how do we know we can't?" All these actions were being observed through a black sphere. Elder Lu grumbled in annoyance as things weren't going according to plan. These pests are so irritating. Unfortunately, the sect leader gave orders to try and spare these patients and nurses. I just need to seal off Zone B and cause chaos. Then, I'll wait for the sect leader to finish off the director and take Thongmak away. He suddenly pursed his lips and fell silent, and immediately after that, Elder Lu burst into a crazed, gleeful laugh, his eyes flashing with excitement. "Decided. I'm killing those three. Should be fine, right?" He scanned everyone intently, then boasted, "Who told you all to go against me in the first place?" Suddenly, everything shifted. Where Elder Lu had been watching, there was nothing left but a black screen. I was so stunned he couldn't even speak. Elder Lu gritted his teeth hard. Confused, he asked, "What's going on?" "I can't see them anymore. Those hateful eyes in that area have been destroyed." Back in the quiet, cloudless night, Jiakai and the group scrambled outside, glancing back at the places they had just left as they navigated their surroundings. "Surrounded by thick dust and blazing fires," a voice spoke through the surveillance feed. "The patient's out of control. They must still be in the room." Jiakai yelled to the group, "The red eyes are gone." Done. It was destroyed by the patient's out-of-control power just now. The group followed her lead and urgent directions, sprinting in one direction. "This way, hurry!" While lying on Tran Chu's back, Thongmak asked Sholin, "Do you still have the chains you used to tie me up before?" Sholin replied as she ran. "They're in the equipment room on the second floor." He made a call. "We're going there." She started leading the way. "This way." "Got it." Daylight flew behind Thongmak and spoke up, "Not a bad idea. If you absorb the rational energy from those chains, you should be able to recover and start acting again." As they ran, Jiaki suddenly noticed something. She widened her eyes in alert and immediately pointed the way forward. There are red eyes at the turn on the left. Go right. The group kept running. Two pairs of red eyes were closing in fast from behind. Daylight flew along, constantly praising her. Jia, you're amazing. Your vision can actually pierce through obstacles. No wonder your emotional power is symbolized by eyes. But right after she said that, something else unexpected happened. It made Jia gasp, we're done for. She warned the group, there are eyes in front and behind us, we can't escape. At that moment, the red eyes behind them were drawing closer and closer, and the ones in front were slowly approaching their position. The look on Jiaki's face had turned to pure terror. Nearby, Sholin was just as anxious, raising her hands to shield herself. Tran Ku, carrying Thuong Mak on his back, could only stare wide-eyed, not knowing how to fight back. Suddenly, two bursts of fire erupted on both sides, swallowing the red eyes in an instant. As only black smoke remained, Sholin clenched her fists and stammered, What just happened? What's going on? Jia immediately explained, the patient's attack just happened to destroy those eyes. How incredibly lucky, Tran Ku said, sounding more excited than before. See? I told you to stay optimistic. Every time I think like that, things turn out for the best. Right after he finished speaking, everyone turned to look at him at once. Then a sudden realization echoed. Tran Ku is your emotional power luck? The night sky was pitch black, making it hard to see anything. Several figures were still hovering in midair, searching for the eyes. They checked a corner of the ruined room, but there was only a monster. Lutrat's emotions reported back, nothing here. He continued checking another corner, finding only some broken chairs. Still nothing. He reported back, nothing. He moved into the hallway to keep looking, but still couldn't find a thing. Everywhere was empty. Elder Lu screamed in a rage, damn it all, these troublesome patients, where on earth could they have gone? Still in that empty hallway. There was nothing in sight. Yet just inches beneath the monster's gaze, the four of them, Thuong Mak, Tran Ku, Jia, and Shaolin, were holding their breath. The ghostly eye continued to move from the wall down to the floor. Sholin whispered softly into the ear of the person next to her, It's a miracle. This eye can't see us. Jia smiled faintly, but before they could celebrate, it seemed to turn back, panicking all four of them. The nurse was terrified and frantically pleaded with the others in despair. It's over. It's turning back. Quick, think of something. But suddenly, an object flew past them, catching them completely off guard. Lutrat's emotional monster roared at the four of them, but strangely, a rock landed square on its head, hurting it so badly it couldn't even dodge. The monster fell over, leaving all four of them stunned. Sholin led everyone toward the door and said, All right. The equipment room was right ahead, but as she touched the door, she realized something terrible. She turned back, trembling, and told them, We're finished. I didn't bring the key. But the wall around the door started making cracking noises. It collapsed with a loud crash, leaving all four of them frozen in place, their faces blank with bewilderment. The door had somehow collapsed right at that moment. Outside, the mystical dark night sky and the twinkling stars created a strangely quiet atmosphere. Chains appeared from nowhere, wrapping around his wrists. Thuong Mak's expression behind his glasses was unreadable. His eyes were tightly shut, his brows furrowed in deep thought. A second later, he cracked his eyes open, deep, dark, and bottomless. Your expression suddenly turned strangely cold. A blue light shimmered in your eyes, and Yahello, standing by your side, praised you. Not bad at all. Having endured the torment of hateful power, you can now absorb much more rational energy. But it's so strange. You are the only one who can see this mysterious girl. Sholin, standing nearby, remained clueless and exclaimed, It's incredible. You can actually absorb the power of those chains. What kind of emotional power is this, anyway? But you replied, Longing, I'm not sure either. Jia asked, So what should we do? You answered, Let me think. You glanced at Yahello, starting to calculate. If we kill the one who ambushed us, would the thorns outside disappear? She answered immediately, Yes. You wondered then, what is the distance between him and me? She closed her eyes and gently explained, The distance between you and the attacker is quite large. While this person is still very far from world class, you are still no match for him. Nowadays, the world typically categorizes emotional entity combat power into 6 levels. Levels, a scale of power created for reference. Those patients are level 1, Lucha is level 2, that bespectacled guy on the boat was level 3, and this attacker is already nearing level 4. World class is level 6. She explained your position on the power scale, noting that you haven't actually reached level 2 yet. You easily defeated Lucha only because you have the ability to resist intense rage. Outside, the terrifying thorns began to coil around everything, but she added, "There is good news. From what I can see, the thorns surrounding District B are likely his emotional entity. It contains an immense amount of emotional power. I suspect this attacker has poured 95% of his strength into the thorns encircling District B," she said, as an image of a person lying in a pool of blood appeared. It looked truly miserable. In other words, his human body is extremely weak right now. If you strike by surprise, you might actually be able to kill him. But Changmo went blank. That left Yahello quite confused, so she turned to you and asked, "What's wrong? Looking at your expression, do you not trust my judgment?" You thought to yourself, "That's right, because there's one thing I still don't understand. Do you remember when you told me earlier that the director was fighting a world-class enemy? That proves you can sense the director's state, right?" Yahello confirmed. "Yes, why?" You explained, "That's because your status is high. So you can perceive things that we cannot, correct? The memories from the battle made you wonder, a person with as high a status as you, why couldn't you sense the patient losing control or the attack of those blood-red thorns? That should have been a very simple matter for you, right?" This led Changma to bluntly question Ali, "Can I truly trust your judgment?" She just gave a knowing, gentle smile, and Yahello remarked, "You are truly sharp. Do you remember what I said? In the emotional world, seeing is an incredibly important ability." She continued to explain that usually, the higher the status, the deeper the understanding of the essence. Therefore, one sees more, and perception is actually a form of seeing. With her eyes closed, she continued, "But in some special cases, the higher the status, the less one sees. For example, when vision is obscured." You still felt confused and asked, "What do you mean?" She replied, "Let me give you an example. You'll understand immediately. According to her, dinosaurs are much stronger than insects, but they won't notice the bug under the leaf by their feet." Applying what she just said to what happened at the hospital. Things like patients losing control or hateful emotional entities are far too trivial for me unless they appear right before my eyes. Only then can I know their state. The reason I knew the director's state was because the director is world-class. That is hard for me to ignore. The nature metaphor continued. Just like the rustling of trees, the roaring, the claw marks, the scents, all of these help dinosaurs judge the state of other dinosaurs around them. Back to reality. Of course, a world-class entity can actually use certain techniques to achieve the ability to sense everything in a surrounding area, no matter how small. In the past, the director relied on this technique to protect both institutes. Yahello looked at you and said, "But my current power is almost completely lost, and I have lost many memories. I am totally unable to do that." You understood. "Oh, I see. I thought you had some ulterior motive you couldn't mention, trying to trick me." That thought made this person across from you smile lightly. She happily said, "Don't worry. I have confirmed with my own eyes that the hateful emotional entity is sealing off District B. Although I don't remember the specifics of his ability, I can judge his power level just by looking." Meanwhile, Sholin still didn't know why you were standing there frozen. Why is Changmo thinking for so long? Sure enough, he still has schizophrenia. Hearing that, you suddenly replied, "I've made up my mind. We have to kill the hateful emotional entity that attacked us." This panicked the others, huh? The three of them gaped in shock and asked, "We're going to kill someone?" Your gaze remained steady as you said, "That's right. Only by killing him can we escape. When the time comes, I'll be the one to do it." Jolene shouted, "Oh my God, Changma really does have mental issues." You continued, "Yaki, can you use your emotional power to see where that person is hiding?" She quickly agreed to the suggestion. "Let me try." She closed her eyes and focused on the attacker's location, then suddenly opened her eyes wide, staring straight ahead as if she had the answer. She spoke up loudly, "I think I see him." I was in the surveillance room, just as predicted. A figure in a black cloak stood there, gasping for breath. He screamed in fury, "Damn it, where the hell did they go? How can I not find them anywhere?" No sooner had he finished speaking than Thuongmak suddenly phased through the wall behind him, catching him completely off guard. Elder Lu's eyes widened in sheer panic, his mouth agape. Thuongmak kept his gaze locked on his target, his eyes burning with intense aggression. Blood splattered instantly as he drove his hand straight through him before the man could even react. With a lethal surge of strength, he tore through the elder's shoulder, sending blood spraying. The elder gritted his teeth, thinking to himself, "Since when did this brat—" Thung Mak assessed the wound and muttered, "He dodged it. If I don't hit the heart, he won't die." Blood-red thorns erupted from the elder's body, and the surrounding air grew thick with dust from their clash. Suddenly, Elder Lu vanished entirely, leaving only those bizarre thorns reaching out toward him. Thuong Mak watched the scene and thought, turning into thorns to escape? Is that even possible? The blood thorns quickly latched onto the doorframe, slithering away like the wind toward a safer spot. The elder slumped over, clutching his wounded side with one hand. Elder Lu roared with resentment, "You brat, I don't know how you found me, but there is no way I'm risking my life to fight you head-on. As long as I can see you, I have 1,000 ways to torture you slowly." His monstrous eye tracked the boy. "What's the point of running now? I won't let you escape this time." Thuong Mak was sprinting at full speed when sharp thorns suddenly sprouted all over his body. His frame shook as he looked at the mysterious spikes growing out of him in confusion. He stopped in his tracks. That monstrous eye continued to track his every move relentlessly. Seeing this, the elder let out a savage laugh. "What's the use of running now? I'm not letting you get away this time." The bizarre red eye stayed locked onto him. Meanwhile, Thuong Mak had to endure the thorns while trying to keep running. The spikes grew more numerous by the second. Without giving up, the crimson eye darted like a fireball down the hallway. Thuong Mak kept running for his life. Enduring the sharp spikes on his body, he channeled his power, and the thorns vanished without a trace. With a loud crash, he smashed through the wall right behind Elder Lu. The elder spun around in a panic. He gritted his teeth, cursing himself for letting his guard down. That brat, he charged straight into the room where I was hiding. The elder lunged at him, declaring, "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" The thorns that had just vanished reappeared, catching Thuong Mak completely by surprise. The thorns coiled together, hoisting Thuong Mak several meters into the air. A massive spike grew from his own mouth, looking truly terrifying. The elder sneered, "I have to admit you're pretty tough getting hit by these spikes so many times, and you're still able to move." With that, he summoned a long whip made of sharp thorns and snarled, "This is the end." Elder Lu swung the whip repeatedly at him, shouting, "Enjoy the power of hatred." As Thuong Mak writhed in pain, the elder laughed. "Every time this whip hits you, your agony will pile up. The damage you take will just keep stacking. Your rage is spinning out of control. If you had just submitted to the thorns, it would be over by now. But now, I'm going to make you taste real suffering. Don't worry, you won't die. You'll suffer 100 times worse than death." The night outside remained dead silent, as if nothing at all were happening. Inside, Thuong Mak was tortured to the point of collapse, blood covering his body, looking utterly wretched. Seeing this, Elder Lu smugly said, "Finally decided to stay quiet, have you?" "Well, that's to be expected after taking so many hits." A giant thorn protruded from his mouth, and thousands of tiny razor-sharp spikes covered his body, which was already riddled with bloody wounds. Daylight leaned in from the side and whispered, "What a pathetic sight. I doubt he's even using 1/10 of his true power." But then she gently interrupted herself. She saw through his scheme, revealing how he had let the chains wrap around him on purpose. Whenever you're wounded, you absorb the power within the chains to heal yourself automatically. You're quite the schemer, aren't you? Seeing him stir, she continued, after taking that many hits. Your body has gradually developed a resistance to this level of hateful energy. Now fight back. After those words, the sharp spikes on his body began to shatter one by one. Thuong Mak's eyes blazed with killing intent. He spread his arms, and a surge of invisible pressure blew apart the thorny constraints holding him, leaving Elder Lu frozen in shock. He never expected things to turn out this way. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Thuong Mak closed the distance in an instant, preparing for an attack. The sky began to brighten. With his eyes locked forward, his hand transformed into a sharp blade, lunging at his target. The elder couldn't react in time, only able to tremble as he faced the pressure of the strike. It warped the space around them as he clashed against the thorn whip. In Elder Lu's grasp, the two soared into the air, trading a flurry of blows. Thuong Mak's fist, combined with his amplified power, struck head-on against the elder's thorny fist. After a moment, the elder thought anxiously, "What is happening? This guy's emotional power. It's like it hasn't diminished at all. It's like there hasn't been even the slightest drop in intensity. Look at you, still strong enough to fight back even while covered in those thorns, and that's not even all. My attacks are becoming less and less effective. It's as if his defenses are constantly climbing. He gritted his teeth, glaring at him with pure hatred. Elder Liu took flight, determined to take the boy's life. I don't know what kind of emotional power you have, he spat. But there is absolutely no need for me to face you head-on. He manipulated the thorns to surround him from all four directions. If I want to leave, you can't possibly stop me. Just slowly suffer through my torture until you die. But suddenly, the thorns were blocked by a burst of Thuong Mac's power. The collision quickly triggered a flow of pitch-black water, which then exploded, sending sparks and blinding light flying everywhere. The thorns shattered as if hitting a protective barrier. He continuously struck out in every direction where Elder Liu had him surrounded, simultaneously knocking the old man back until he flipped over in a pathetic heap. Seeing this, Elder Liu thought, black water, fire, and disintegration are this patient's emotional powers? They attacked at the exact same time, blocking my escape route? This is just too much of a coincidence. An image of Han Leung flashed through his mind. No, there were no emotional monsters above them. They hadn't lost control at all. What on earth is going on? Thuong Mac didn't care about his thoughts. With a swift, decisive strike, he slashed across the man's throat to end his life. A small, round mass rolled away across the cold tiles. Standing nearby, Han Leung felt thrilled watching the headless corpse. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, and debris was piled up all over the room. Han Leung raised both arms with a bright smile. We did it. Another patient looked terrified. We killed a person, but Han Leung still looked fearless. He deserved it. Gi Kai shouted excitedly over the radio. You guys actually managed to take down the boss. Thuong Mac, how did you come up with that plan? Getting the other patients to regain their senses and help out? Thuong Mac just answered calmly. At that moment, Tran Q in the supply room had just happened to see the radio equipment, and the image of Tran Chin sitting and staring at a cardboard box in the supply room flashed in his mind. Gi Kai kneeled on the floor, listening intently to the sounds from the radio. And her contribution was the greatest, she said. Everything was thanks to her using her vision to command us. Only then could we succeed. She blushed and smiled humbly. You're too kind. Dalai crouched down beside the corpse that had just been struck, saying, You guys are really lucky. This guy didn't even retract his power before he died. If he had, even if you all rushed him together, you would have only met one fate, death. Is this what they call not even getting to use your ultimate move before dying? Thuong Mac, what should we do next? Thuong Mac leaned against the wall, his voice indifferent. The thorns outside have started to disappear. Let's regroup and get out of here. The danger isn't over yet. The director is definitely still fighting the enemy, and besides, there might still be more enemies outside. Gi Kai looked excited by this new information. There are still enemies? Then what do we do? Thuong Mac continued. He recalled the image of Tu Lam looking confused with a phone in his hand. The communication signals between the two hospitals had been jammed, which was why they couldn't make calls earlier. Thuong Mac began guiding everyone on the next plan. We have to escape the jammed area. He reminded everyone to find a way to contact Than Sa. Then call Dr. Lau. The enemy's attack happening while Dr. Lau was away. Definitely wasn't a coincidence. So only when Dr. Lau returns, can we truly break this stalemate? Gi Kai nodded in agreement. We're heading down right now. As everyone was preparing to leave the room, a voice rang out. Damn you! Thuong Mac changed his expression, glancing toward where the voice came from. A terrifying, eerie aura began to emanate from the corpse on the floor. It's all because of you damn people. A crimson-red mist began to spread out from the building again. How dare you treat me like this? The voice grew more and more spiteful. A bunch of ants, how dare you treat me like this? Elder Liu's face appeared, filled with immense rage and hatred. Even in death, I won't let you off. His surroundings were tightly bound by red threads. His whole body seems to have transformed into those threads. The red, thorn-covered ropes were slowly turning toward Thuong Mac's group, then surged forward to attack them. Everyone scrambled in panic, the sound of shouting filling the room. Hurry! Run! Is this guy a zombie? We're doomed, we're totally doomed, shut up! Thuong Mac couldn't help but wonder, didn't he already die? Why can he still attack? Dalai stood by his side, her face remaining very calm. I don't know, but he definitely died. This must be the special ability of the emotion of hatred. He's poured all his remaining power into this. We're no match for him. Right at the corner nearby, Jaikai's group had just managed to run down. They stopped for a second, stunned. The red thorn ropes were still rushing toward them to attack. Everyone was in chaos. Stop standing there, ending their run. What on earth is happening? Didn't we already kill him? It's hard to say for sure. Just run. The three of them plunged back into the crowd, instinctively following the person in front. Losing his patience, he grimaced, his entire body radiating a manic, burning intensity. Turning toward Old Master Liu, he snarled, "Damn it, you won't let us go, will you?" A massive burst of flame erupted from his body as he shouted, "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Everyone watched him in pure terror. "Run, bro, don't do it." But the red thorny vines seized him, and blood sprayed everywhere. Another patient looked on in horror, eyes wide with fear. How did it end up like this? He sat in his friend's blood, clutching his head in helplessness. But Old Master Liu didn't stop, continuing his assault on the group. Jiaki looked back anxiously as she ran. They shouted reminders to one another, "Keep moving." With no way to help them anymore, Tulam lagged behind, gasping for air, her voice cracking. "No, I can't run anymore." Jiakai looked back, encouraging her. "Sister Tulam, keep going." Dalai also glanced at Tulam's retreating figure, behind which the red thorny vines were closing in fast. "We can't afford to waste time here. We have to get that little nurse's phone. Without that phone, our chances of survival drop significantly." Tulam's legs grew heavy and gave out. She collapsed to the ground. Jiakai ran ahead, as if to hold them back, while the giant red thorny vines chased relentlessly behind. Jiakai turned back and screamed, "Sister Tulam." Dalai said to Thongmak beside her, "If she dies like this, we won't get the phone. Move." Ahead, Thongmak was sprinting, with Jiakai calling out behind him. Thongmak Tulam stared in shock as the vines slowly approached, her voice trembling and repetitive. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die yet." Her eyes filled with extreme terror and helplessness. "Save me, Thongmak. Hurry and save me." Tranku looked toward Thongmak, full of worry. "Bro, you can't save her." Tranku's voice echoed a warning. Tulam glanced back. "Don't just throw another life away." The image of Thongmak reaching out for her flashed before her eyes. Tulam remembered her daily life, and a glistening tear escaped the corner of her eye. Then, images of Tranku, and Thongmak, Hanlung, and Jiaki appeared one by one. Thongmak's arm reached out into thin air, his body straining forward, teeth gritted in intense struggle. Tulam held the phone out toward him, her face finally settling into a calm expression. Thongmak, take the phone, go, hurry." Tulam's voice rang out, his eyes widened in shock. "Don't worry about me. Get the doctor back to help us get revenge." Thongmak reached his hand toward Tulam. She also held the phone out to him. As their hands drew closer, Thongmak suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her hard toward him. He shoved her backward just as the red thorny vines lunged at them. Tulam cried out. Thongmak he turned and shouted to the others, "Go! I'll use my power to chain him down. Everyone get out of here and contact the doctor now!" The group stared at Thongmak in shock as he roared. Go Tulam and the others turned and bolted forward. Leaving Thongmak behind, the thorny vines began to swarm him. Dalai stood back with her arms crossed, her voice dripping with reproach. "Unexpected. Playing the hero, are we? This could get us both killed." Thongmak raised his hands to shield his face and replied, "Sorry, my head wasn't in the right place." Dalai smirked, her tone softening. "It's fine. It's good to have a body with logic and emotions. If you don't explode a little, how will you ever control your mind? Take a breath. Try absorbing the power from all the chains." Thongmak looked back at her, suspicious. "Won't I lose control?" She smiled faintly, looking straight at him. "How will you know unless you try?" Thongmak thrust his hands forward, his face turning serious. "All right." He closed his eyes, focusing intensely. A pitch-black sphere covered. In a soft blue glow appeared amidst thousands of thorny vines. The vines began to disappear, little by little. Not far away, two mysterious dark figures watched the scene unfold. Yenbak leaned against a nearby tree, his voice full of surprise. "The thorny barrier is gone." Is that Thongmak's emotional monster? How could he have such terrifying power? What on earth happened? Anna stood with her hands in her pockets, showing no emotion, and said softly, "I'm afraid only those involved know." Yenbak kept his mask on. Looking toward the building, he continued. The situation has changed. Please, take action now. As the two observed the unfolding events, Yenbak added, Sect Master Trio still isn't finished. If something goes wrong now, all our efforts will go down the drain. Anna remained calm, watching the scene intently. No, our agreement is, I am only responsible for dealing with the world-class threat behind Thuong Mak. I don't care about the rest. Yenbak, now slightly agitated, pointed forward. Then at least, please use your world-class power to envelop this area. To keep anyone from escaping. Anna slowly opened her lighter and brought the flame to her cigarette. So, you're still asking me to take action, aren't you? I can't. I'm just here to follow the contract, Yanbei replied, clearly flustered. A small flame flickered at the tip of the cigarette. Anna added gently, There's no need to be so tense. The remaining thorn vines were working at full capacity. Anna's voice remained steady. We're guarding the exit to Sector B now. You're free to leave if you want. Every time they managed to suppress a target, they couldn't possibly get away. High above, the moon was perfectly round, casting light across the area, while below, Sholin's group scrambled forward. Tran Q led the way, with Jai Kai trailing behind, panting and wiping away sweat. Damn it, it's so dark. Can we really make it out of here? We really should have taken the main road. Obviously, we can't get out through the front gate. What if that person has accomplices? Our only chance is to run into the mountains. Tran Ku looked back at Thuong Mak, who was still wearing a smile. Besides, our brother here has the power to break down those emotions. If all else fails, we'll just drill a hole and escape. Jai Kai turned to Shaolin, who was clutching her phone. How is it, Shaolin? Is there any signal yet? Shaolin stared intently at the screen and shook her head slightly. Still no signal. Suddenly, a smile broke across her face. Wait, I've got it. The group felt a glimmer of hope. But before they could even celebrate, the voice on the other end, it was like a bucket of cold water doused over them. I'm sorry. The number you have reached is currently powered off. Sholin's face went pale, and her voice began to stutter. How could this be? If that's the case, then... Thuong Mak, what about him? Tran Ku snapped his fingers. He's shifting his kinetic energy. Keep calling. Things will work out in the end. Sholin's eyes widened in surprise as she looked at Tran Ku. Seeing the person standing before her, hope suddenly surged back into her heart, and her voice grew bright again. She said aloud, That's right, we have Tran Ku. Luck is definitely on our side. The red thorn vines were still thrashing on top of the building. Boulders kept slamming into them. The battle was incredibly intense. The building began to shake violently as patients scrambled to escape. The red vines lashed against the walls, causing bricks and stones to rain down. Elder Lu had a look of pure rage on his face. He cursed, Damn it! The vines wove together into massive, chaotic clumps, thrashing wildly. Thuong Mak's black sphere, pulsing with a cold blue light, stood its ground firmly. Thuong Mak remained expressionless, his eyes fixed ahead. Bolts of blue light shot out like missiles toward Elder Lu, whose eyes widened in sheer terror. You sliced the thorn vines in half, and they began to wither away. You raised one hand, channeling every ounce of your strength into it. Thuong Mak gritted his teeth, his other hand gripping his right arm, channeling his energy. Suddenly, his iron chains began to crack. Daylight screamed, her voice filled with anxiety. No, even if you've absorbed the power of the chains or resisted the hatred, our true strength is still below his, a full tier below. A direct confrontation is impossible. Thuong Mak didn't look at her, but asked calmly, Then what should I do? Daylight looked at Thuong Mak and quickly replied, You still have one way to try. Attempt to influence his spirit with the power of rational, emotional energy, just like you did with those patients. Daylight's voice echoed nearby. Elder Lu was still struggling to fend off Thuong Mak. In reality, he's been dead for a long time. He's just hanging on through the sheer power of his hatred. Once his spirit regains its reason, his entire power base might collapse. Thuong Mak's blue light swirled around him like a talisman, all converging on the center. This is the moment. One final blow, make him wake up. Thuong Mak lunged toward the monster, ignoring the myriad of sharp red tentacles trying to take his life. Despite the protective aura, Thuong Mak was still wounded by the red barbs. Elder Lu had completely lost his sanity, transformed into a ferocious beast. He launched thousands of blood-red thorns as sharp as blades, tearing into Thuong Mak's flesh. Perhaps seeing him stubbornly charging forward drove the elder into a frenzy. The massive, ferocious red vines missed their mark, then circled back as if to crush Thwongmak's small frame. A thicket of vines enveloped his body, trying to drag him down. He was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps he had been completely consumed by the thorns. Elder Lu laughed in triumph, his face twisted in ecstatic madness. But suddenly, from within the sharp, thorny vines, a hand reached out toward his face. This caught Elder Lu by surprise. It was Thwongmak's hand. He grabbed the elder's head, ignoring the panic etched across the old man's face. Then, Thwongmak channeled his spiritual energy through the elder's head, causing the fierceness in Elder Lu's eyes to fade. Perhaps from the flow of that energy, he began to change. His gaze grew kinder, clearer, and the hatred ebbed away. When the hatred finally vanished, Elder Lu returned to his true original self. His face was gentle, and his eyes shimmered with utter astonishment. In this vast space, the red vines were gone, and the out-of-control appearance of Elder Lu had vanished. As Elder Lu watched the flow of spiritual energy around him, he quietly wondered, why has it been so long since I've felt this way? No longer controlled by hatred, feeling truly like himself, he looked as if he had just had a sudden realization. His gaze grew distant as he stared ahead, and suddenly, a layer of moisture welled up in Elder Lu's eyes, as if he were deeply moved by something. Laughing and crying at once, Elder Lu said sincerely, "Is this what it's like? So it was like this all along? The heavens haven't abandoned us after all." The red thorns still surrounded him, but they no longer posed a threat. Elder Lu said to Thwongmak, "I'm sorry I've caused you harm." This expression from Elder Lu left Thwongmak stunned for a moment, and then the red thorns surrounding him slowly dispersed and shattered. They were like snakes without a head, aimlessly floating in the air. When Thwongmak was freed from the thorns, his body hadn't yet adjusted to being released, so he fell and landed safely on the ground. In short, there was absolutely nothing to worry about. "You're going to get hurt." Thwongmak's expression remained somber, his thoughts unreadable at this moment. He sat up and asked Dalai, who was floating nearby, "Is he dead?" Dalai smiled and replied, "That's right." Thwongmak recalled the expression on Elder Lu's face just moments ago. He pondered deeply, but the old man's final words had been very strange. Suddenly, Dalai pointed at the floating red mass not far away and said to Thwongmak, "Look over there." That red mass had sprouted countless sharp thorns and took on a bizarre shape. Seeing this, Thwongmak asked, "What is that?" Dalai explained. "That is his core of hatred." Hearing this, Thwongmak asked, "An emotional core?" She began to explain, "Have you forgotten? At the moment Luza killed your supervisor, he was actually trying to consume this emotional core. So when you killed Luja and that man with the glasses, you actually acquired something like this too. It's just that you didn't have the time to collect it. All of his emotional power is concentrated right there. It's a pity you don't possess the emotion of hatred. Otherwise, your rational emotional monster could have consumed this. Then the monster's power would have increased significantly, and you would have been able to borrow even more strength from it." Thwongmak nodded. "So that's how it is. That's strange. Why is my power not dissipating like this?" This remark from Thwongmak caught Dali's attention, and she suddenly thought of something. He became agitated, panic visible in his eyes. Suddenly, she cried out, "This is bad. You're about to lose control." Thwongmak asked calmly, as if he still didn't realize the gravity of the situation. Suddenly, large blocks of ice began to grow out of one side of his face. They were hard and heavy. Now appearing to understand what Dalai meant, he asked her, "Losing control, what should I do?" Seeing the scene before her, Dalai replied in a panic. "First of all, you mustn't be too calm. Fear is fine, anger is fine, happiness is fine. Sorrow is fine too, anything at all will do. Try to recall moments that moved you." Thwongmak repeated the words, fear, anger, happiness, and sorrow with a blank face. He stood motionless, his voice completely devoid of emotion. He asked, "What is that?" Hearing this question, Dalai thought to herself with anxiety, "He's lost control completely." Dalai looked at Thwongmak, calculating something in her mind. She thought, if he still remembers the rules, there might still be hope, but my own memory is a complete blank right now. I can't stop him from losing control. Faced with such a dangerous situation. Yet, Dalai showed no signs of panic. She calmed herself down and sighed softly. Oh well, it was always a go big or go home situation anyway. In these days, having someone to talk to was already a good thing. Thuong Mak, it seems this is as far as we go. Dayli stood face to face with Thuong Mak. The two stood still, each lost in their own thoughts. Would they understand each other's hearts, or choose to let this be a missed opportunity? Suddenly, a strange fragrance spread through the air. It silently snaked its way through everything. Dayli sensed that scent. When she realized what it was, she was incredibly astonished. She looked toward the red, chaotic mass in the distance. It was radiating energy waves that beckoned to her. It remained there, silently and quietly emitting that special power. Although it just sat there, it was extremely alluring, making Dayli's heart skip a beat. With a shocked expression, Dayli thought to herself, could I be feeling this wrong? No, that's impossible. Even though there are only a few faint threads, it truly is. She stared at that chaotic mass full of sharp thorns. Her heart was in turmoil over her own power. Suddenly, she turned back to look at Thuong Mak and said, Thuong Mak, cheer up, we've been saved. Do you see that blue power? That is my power. If I touch it, I might be able to regain some memories, and who knows, I might even find a way to save you. Hearing this, Thuong Mak moved forward mechanically. He walked close to that red chaotic mass with the sharp thorns. Dayli watched Thuong Mak and thought to herself, why does this entity of hateful emotion? A bit of my own power, huh? With every step Thuong Mak took, the doubts in her heart only grew. Did I have some kind of connection to the Black Lotus sect in my past? Dayli watched Thuong Mak's every move with bated breath, thinking to herself, whatever the truth is, I'll know the answer soon enough. As Thuong Mak's hand gradually touched the chaos, the thoughts in Dayli's mind began to clear. Her past, that orb of chaos, pulsed as if beckoning to her. But Thuong Mak had been touching it for so long, Dayli wondered, what on earth is going on? When Thuong Mak truly made contact, a blinding light suddenly erupted. It flared up, spreading to everything around them, and like a brilliant explosion, it consumed everything in sight. Both Thuong Mak and Dayli were completely stunned by the scene before them. Perhaps they had stepped into Dayli's memory. Ahead was a magnificent grand hall with countless followers gathered below. Hail to the sect leader standing above was only one person, yet she radiated an incredibly majestic aura. It was Dayli. She addressed the followers below. I established the Black Lotus sect to save everyone, but this is still not enough, because to restore sanity to this world, there is still one more thing that must be done. She cast her deep blue eyes down at the followers and continued, that is to destroy Donghai City. Thuong Mak stared at the scene unfolding before him. The magnificent hall, the followers, and Dayli standing above. She was likely the sect master. Thuong Mak's expression became bewildered. He thought to himself, what does this mean? Dayli is the founder of the Black Lotus sect? He suddenly recalled that Sister Tulam had once mentioned, over 15 years ago, they wanted to destroy Donghai City, which led to an uncontrollable surge of intense, sorrowful emotions, dyeing Donghai black. At this moment, Thuong Mak looked at Dayli and saw she was just as shocked. He thought, so 15 years ago, the one who wanted to destroy Donghai City was Dayli. It was she who triggered the uncontrollable depressive emotions that turned into the Black Donghai. The more he thought, the more questions flooded his mind. Who on earth is she? What exactly does she want to do? Suddenly, small cracks appeared in the space, tiny, yet incredibly conspicuous, causing Dayli's memory to shatter into pieces. He snapped back to reality. Just as he was about to touch the chaos again, Thuong Mak looked around, muttering to himself, back again, huh? By now, his body was in excruciating pain. Ice shards had grown all over him. His muscles were so rigid he couldn't stand and he collapsed. Dayli looked at Thuong Mak and said, don't rush. I've remembered a few things, and I also remember how to save you. Dayli held the chaos in her hands, her eyes full of confidence. Come on, eat this. You don't need much. Just one bite is enough and you'll be saved. She offered a smile, a mix of sweetness and concern, but with an underlying darkness. The chaotic mass wriggled in her hand as if inviting Thuong Mak to partake. Dayli stood there holding the chaos, facing Thuong Mak. Looking like a hedgehog covered in icy crystals, Thuong Mak wore a contemplative expression and remained silent for a moment. Suddenly, Thuong Mak sighed and smiled, as if he had accepted his fate. He opened his mouth and said to Dayli, go ahead. It's a pity I can't move, so sorry to make you feed me. Dayli listened silently to Thuong Mak, seeing the struggle on his face. Then, she stepped closer and fed the chaotic mass into his mouth, following her train of thought. As that chaotic substance slid down Thongmak's throat, he suddenly felt something. His eyes rolled back, pupils shrinking to the size of pinpricks. Suddenly, Thongmak's body, which had been lying sprawled out, jerked upward, though it was difficult with his body covered in crystals. Red streaks began to appear on his skin, faint at first, then becoming very clear. These red lines traced all over his body, and suddenly, Thongmak screamed in agony. The red lines erupted, and it seemed the crystals on his body were finally cracking apart. The violent, surging red streaks caused Thongmak immense pain. Every inch of his skin was covered in red spikes, combined with the ice crystals, making him look almost like a hedgehog. His hands and feet were subjected to extreme pain. Even the skin on his face was invaded by red spikes, but at the same time, the ice crystals began to melt and fall away from his face. Dalai stood on the sidelines, observing silently. She couldn't step in to help and didn't say a single word. In such a situation, Dalai even gave a faint smile, light obscuring half of her face, hiding her true expression. Thongmak looked over at Dalai and saw her like that. He frowned, and suddenly, his whole body was racked with intense pain. The red spikes shot out simultaneously, and then, as if going from hell back to heaven, his entire body suddenly felt incredibly light and free. Below, Dalai remained standing, watching in silence. Thongmak fell with a thud onto the ground right next to where Dalai was standing after the intense ordeal he had just endured. Thongmak gasped for air, struggling, but the pain in his body was gone. Dalai slowly approached him, gently reaching out to cradle his head. Lifting his head, she rested it on her lap and whispered softly, "Thank you for choosing to trust me," Thongmak replied with a reluctant look. "Don't talk so much. I had no choice but to trust you." Hearing this, Dalai said gently, "Rational emotion, take a rest now. There's no need to run anymore." Regarding the fact that Dalai was the sect master of the Black Lotus sect, it still left Thongmak incredibly astonished. He said, "I didn't expect that after causing so much chaos for so long. You were actually the founder of the Black Lotus sect. A founder like you must have been missing for many years, right? Is that so? Can you still command them?" Dalai silently recalled everything and said, "Probably not. I remembered some things. After the failed attempt to destroy Donghai City, the Black Lotus sect's internal ranks began to fracture, creating global-level hatred. The one coming for us now is Trio Dien, the leader of the largest opposing faction in the sect at that time." Then she warned Thongmak, "If you fall into his hands, I'm afraid there won't be a happy ending." Hearing this, Thongmak said, "Huh? Then why aren't we running away quickly?" Dalai replied, "There's no need to run anymore," and continued, "Because we can no longer escape." Not far away, Trio Dien appeared, looking incredibly haggard. As he approached where Thongmak was resting, he said, "It's over." The scene shifts to nightfall at the dilapidated hospital building, where countless crimson spikes have pierced through, and in that place stands a person with long, white hair. Pinioned by the sharp spikes, he looks to be in great pain. It's the director. He curses, "Damn it, get back here!" The scene cuts through a pair of binoculars. Perhaps someone in the distance is watching the director. It's Yenbak. She is observing him through binoculars and speaking to Anna, who is standing beside Master Trio. That's far too arrogant. The director isn't dead yet. Did he just walk past Thongmak? In this operation, the director was the primary target. What if he's still alive? Anna replies, "You don't understand the power of the hate emotion entity. She has been fighting Master True for so long. A massive amount of hate-based emotional energy has accumulated within her body." Anna continues, "For a short time, she can still rely on the power of agitated emotions to prolong her life. But the moment she relaxes even a little, the agitation will fade, and she will be backlashed by the massive amount of hate inside her. Even if Master Trio doesn't deal with her, she will die on her own. This is something no one can change. Yenbak no di as I see, so that's how it is." With a seductive expression and cold eyes, Anna continues, "Though Master Trio does seem to be in quite a hurry." Suddenly she asks, "He seems very interested in Thongmak." On the ground lie countless corpses of patients and nurses. Anna tells Yenbak, "Forget it. Clean up and let's go. There's an important meeting at the Emotion Management Bureau here in Donghai City. But regarding everyone's mental state there, things don't look too good." Fan Ka thinks gloomily, "How long is this meeting going to last?" The meeting drags on in an arid, boring atmosphere. Than Ka sneakily pulls out her phone to do her own thing. What time is it even? This meeting is so boring. Should I just keep slacking off? No, I need to go touch my fish right now, die. Again shouts a warning immediately. Dr. Lau, this is a top-secret conference. Do not open your phone embarrassed to be scolded in front of everyone. She slams her hand on the table in frustration. Damn it, do you think I won't do anything to you just because there are people around? Dui Nian continues to reprimand her. Be patient. We are all emotion entities, yet you don't even have this much patience? Suddenly, Than Ka stands up abruptly in the middle of the meeting and marches out, leaving Dui Nian panicked as he shouts, Dr. Lau, where are you going? Than Ka replies nonchalantly, Can't I go to the bathroom? Or are you going to follow me even when I go to the restroom, huh? Seeing her arrogant attitude, he is very angry but has to swallow it. Meanwhile, Than Ka is in the bathroom looking at her fish, sighing wearily. Honestly, if it keeps going like this, I'm going to lose control. Suddenly, Than Ka's phone vibrates, making her wonder, Tu Lam, why are you calling me so late? She picks up immediately. Hello? The person on the other end says something that makes Than Ka's eyes widen in horror. She rushes outside, shouting, You said hospital number 2 was attacked and all the guards were slaughtered? The director was dragged into it too? Than Ka rushes to open the window to check the situation outside. Hospital number 2 is in that direction. She sees something and freezes in absolute shock. Grotesque, strange black patches have appeared in the sky, originating from far away. It's that very hospital building. A gigantic black monster is surrounding the hospital. Than Ka recognizes it immediately. The director's emotional monster is still here. It shouldn't be a big problem. Suddenly she pauses, realizing something. Wait, that is... Seeing the bright red spikes on the monster, Than Ka grows anxious. That's hate-based emotional energy. The director isn't going to make it. She becomes enraged, her eyes flashing red as she screams, Damn it! A sudden violent collision rocks a corner of the building. Dui Nian jumps, confused. What's going on? There are explosions inside the building. He looks around frantically. This is bad. By now, Dui Nian has rushed somewhere else. Before him is a large hole in the building's wall. Yenbak reports fearfully. The women's restroom has exploded. Dui Nian witnesses the scene, and it originated from far away. Outside the city, something crimson is soaring through the air, heading straight for a specific target. At this moment, at the Thiente Entertainment headquarters in Donghai City, someone looks at the red thing outside and wonders, who is that? Using energy in such an ostentatious way? The man calmly smokes his cigar and deduces, that direction seems to be toward hospital number 2. Is this an attempt to wage war on hospital number 2? This isn't right. There's something wrong with that hospital. Looking at that disgusting, massive monster, anyone could tell it was the physical embodiment of hatred. The Black Lotus sect had just attacked the branch of the number 2 hospital in Langchu, Donghai City. An old man stood nearby, curiously watching the direction of the monster. It was a type of emotion he had never seen before. The strange things happening in this Donghai City, there are just so many of them. That crimson entity was still hovering in the sky, though the people down below were still completely unaware. A fancy couple stepped out of their car, and suddenly the man collapsed, leaving the girl beside him in a panic. My love, what's wrong? Several people were already hiding in corners, terrified. Just then, a mysterious girl stood by the river, observing that crimson entity. This girl didn't even flinch. She just let out a soft huff. It was a clear, breezy night, but Tu Lam was anxiously tapping on her phone, wondering if Dr. Lau would arrive in time. Tran Q tried to reassure her, Don't worry, it'll be fine, I'm sure of it. Jai Kai chimed in, I hope so. Tu Lam asked, By the way, Jai Ki, can't you see whatever you want to see? Could you try to check on Thong Mac's condition? Jai Kai suddenly realized, Right, let me try. She began to channel her inner energy, activating her psychic vision. Before her eyes appeared an image of Thuong Mac being grabbed by the throat by Trio Dien. She screamed out loud, Oh no, Thuong Mac is about to be taken away. Suddenly, her vision turned blood red. Blood poured from Jai Ki's eyes, and she clutched her face in agony, shrieking. Tu Lam asked worriedly, Jai Ki, what's wrong? Jai Kai cried out, My eyes, they hurt so much. Suddenly, the sky above them turned deep, blood red. The area around Thuong Mac and Trio Dien looked exactly the same. The entire region was being swallowed by a bizarre rain of blood. Trio Dien darted his eyes around as if he had realized something. Just then, someone lunged in, separating him from Thuong Mac. It was Than Ka, appearing like a damsel rescuing a hero. A powerful slash from Than Ka severed Trio Dien's head clean off. He stared in terror as she spun through the air with her blade. "Isn't that the doctor?" "She's so strong," seeing Than Ka rushing toward the mass of tentacles, Trio Dien told himself. "I have to get out of here." The tentacles began to shift, preparing to escape. But Than Ka wasn't about to let that happen. With lightning speed, she unleashed a barrage of slashes, sending the tentacles falling to the ground with a wet thud. Dozens of her swords pierced right through them. The pile of tentacles writhed for a moment before hitting an invisible wall. Trio Dien realized something was wrong. This space seemed to be some kind of barrier. Than Ka noticed his movement, planting her feet firmly into the ground to build momentum. She then lunged forward, slicing straight through the tangled mess of tentacles. Trio Dien gritted his teeth, frowning in fear. She looked like a tiny heroine lost in a giant nest of tentacles, but Than Ka showed no sign of fear, her face set with grim determination. She soared into the air, unleashing a circular slash that shattered the tentacles trying to pierce the invisible wall. Trio Dien's face was etched with anxiety. Seeing the tentacles fly straight up toward a gap that had opened in the sky, Trio Dien thought to himself, "I made it." He quickly broke out of the barrier and prepared to flee, but Than Ka wouldn't let it be that easy. Trio Dien was extremely worried. The barrier was closing back up. "If I stay here, I'm not going to make it out," he thought. So, he pulled a distraction, shouting, "Aren't you going to check on your hospital director?" Suddenly, Than Ka froze. She gritted her teeth, hesitant. Trio Dien's ploy had worked. Instead of chasing him, Than Ka turned back. She quickly lowered Thong Mak to safety and then immediately flew off toward somewhere else. She flew to the hospital and shouted, "Director seeing Man Thu." Than Ka quickly called out, "Please, hang in there just a little longer." In no time, she had managed to carry her out. Than Ka brought both of them to the hospital rooftop and laid Man Thu on the ground. She tried to make a phone call, but when it failed, she flew into a rage. "Damn it, why is that management agency so slow?" Man Thu spoke up weakly. "Little Than Ka, don't waste your energy. I'm already too old," she said calmly in a faint whisper. "But now I feel much more at peace." Truly, it is only when faced with death that a person can finally break free from the control of their emotions. Than Ka could only curse and scream at the heavens. "Damn it all," she shrieked in absolute fury. "I have to kill him and everyone behind him. The Black Lotus sect. I have to kill them all." Thwong Mak and Da Lai were stunned by the crimson aura radiating from Than Ka. That red aura spread across the entire surrounding area. Tu Lam looked on, confused, as patients cowered, clutching their heads. From afar, Anna Chris gasped, "This is terrifying." To be able to feel her killing intent from this far away, Than Ka wept bitterly, muttering unconsciously, "I have to kill them." Suddenly, Man Thu reached out and gently stroked her cheek. She comforted her softly. "Control your emotions. Don't let my efforts go to waste. Come now, come closer." Man Thu didn't forget to remind her that after she passed, she would need to take care of Thwong Mak. Than Ka still clung to a glimmer of hope. "Director, you'll be okay. You'll be just fine." She sighed, her heart aching with bitterness. "But you're just a child yourself," Man Thu continued, her voice trembling. "Little Than Ka, the road ahead." She left her final words. "You have to walk it on your own now." With those final words, Man Thu took her last breath. Than Ka's eyes widened, and tears streamed down her face like rain. She stared blankly at the woman who had sheltered her for so long, now gone forever. A cry that shook the very heavens erupted. "Director." The air grew heavy and silent after the battle. Everyone, moved to tears, rushed over to console Than Ka. On the other side, several people lay scattered across the ground, unconscious. The high-rise building had been heavily damaged by the tentacles. Duyin Gyang watched the scene, completely dazed. I was frozen stiff inside the building. Some had also fainted from the tentacle attacks. Yenbak's eyes had rolled back, and she lay motionless on the ground. Than Ka watched her from where she stood. Her hands trembled, weak and shaking. A night of terror had finally passed, leaving behind immense loss of life and property. After the storm, the sun rose again at the Donghai City Psychiatric Hospital. Than Ka was instructing the patients, "Everyone, go get some rest. Especially you, Thong Mak. You're clearly still hurt, but keep trying to help others." "Don't worry," they replied in unison. "This is the center of Donghai City. It's very safe." Shan Q waved goodbye to his two friends. "I'm going to get some sleep, too," Thong Mak replied. "Yeah." Only he and Han Luong were left standing there, not knowing what to do. Thuong Mak turned and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Sao Han Luong scratched his head and said, "Well, it's like this. Oh, right. My name is Sao Han Luong. I heard you can help people stop losing control of their emotions. You're the one who can suppress them, right?" Thuong Mak answered modestly, "I suppose I can." Han Luong begged, "Then please help me. I'm begging you." So, he had no choice but to place his hand on Han Luong's head to perform the procedure. After a moment, Thuong Mak said, "All right, that's done." Han Luong's eyes went wide, and he stood completely stunned. His face looked vacant, as if something earth-shattering had happened. Suddenly, Han Luong grabbed his hair and began to sob uncontrollably. He collapsed to the floor and let out a heart-wrenching scream. Thuong Mak approached him worriedly. "Are you all right?" Han Luong stammered. "Sister Chu, He wailed even louder, revealing the truth. "I killed Sister Chu." Thuong Mak remembered that moment. It was when he had lost control of his emotions and released his entity. Thuong Mak quickly knelt down to comfort him. "Look, you didn't mean to. Besides, she's gone now. Crying won't bring her back." But Han Luong was still consumed by agony. "You don't need to comfort me. I deserve to die." Through his tears, he poured out his heart. "Truth is, I was always secretly in love with Sister Chu. Last night, I intended to confess to her, but I didn't expect I'm such a beast. Sister Chu was so good to me, and yet, I killed her." Han Luong felt even more guilty. "Even just a moment ago, I didn't feel sad. I was actually smiling. I can't believe it. How could I possibly be smiling?" He fell to his knees and cried out, "Thuong Mak, tell me, am I even human anymore? Should I just end it all?" Thuong Mak thought to himself that it didn't seem like such a big deal, but he pulled out a necklace and held it out to Han Luong. "This is what Sister Chu asked me to give to you. She also left you a message." Thuong Mak repeated her words. "She said she hopes this little light can shine into the darkness around you." Looking at Thuong Mak's expression now, it was exactly like the gentle, kind look Sister Chu used to have. Han Luong was stunned, frozen in place, before he reached out to take the necklace. Han Luong gripped the precious necklace tightly in his hand, held it to his chest, and sobbed. "Thuong Mak, thank you." The next morning, still at the hospital, Thuong Mak was reading a small note in his hand, looking pensive. In front of him, Han Luong had already taken his own life. Unable to bear the weight of his guilt, he had left a note with his final words. "I've started smiling again. I'm sorry, I can't forgive myself for killing Sister Chu, and yet still feeling happy." Thuong Mak said coldly, "Was all that really necessary?" Day Lai, being more perceptive, explained. "For most people, death is the only escape from the control of their emotions." She then looked at him. "Thuong Mak, haven't you realized that you're the same?" The scene shifted to a different area, where a mysterious girl stood in the middle of the woods. She was contacting someone through her earpiece. "Tong, don't worry, I'm almost at the city center. Thanks for everything this time. Freedom feels amazing. It's just a shame Thuong Mak didn't make it back. Behind me, Anna will help." She was the former head nurse of the Donghai City Psychiatric Hospital No. 2, Yenbak. She took off her mask and ordered, "Proceed with the plan. I'm not the head nurse anymore, so I don't need to be so restricted." At that moment, at a villa belonging to the Tong family in Donghai City, he said to Triu Dien, "Master Triu, thank you for your hard work this time. Once everything is finished, we will certainly keep our promise." He just sat there, deep in thought. Dalai was indeed still alive. Meanwhile, at the Great Yen Kingdom, Central Bureau of Emotional Entities. Inside the first arbitration court, the judge was reading the charges. Tran Lak, the year 1225 of the new calendar. You used forbidden emotional power in Tansang City. The incident left 17 people seriously injured and caused damage to various public facilities. The final verdict, life imprisonment. The judge struck the gavel. This decision is effective as of today. The defendant standing at the bar was the branch director of Thien Te. The branch director of Tansang City, Tran Lak. He stood up in anger, protesting, "What kind of joke is this? I don't accept this. I didn't do it on purpose." "On what grounds? Do you have any idea who I am?" "I am a national-level emotional entity, and the company backing me is none other than Tianji. You have no right to treat me like this. I want to appeal." But the judge remained calm and said, "I'm sorry. The ruling from the Central Administration Bureau is final. Take him away." Only then did Chen Lu realize what fear was. Are you kidding me? Out of pure rage, his emotional entity surged forth, roaring at the heavens. Who the hell are you kidding? But then, in the next instant, it wasn't just Chen Luo's emotional entity. Another entity, far more massive, appeared. He froze instantly, a sinking feeling telling him something was terribly wrong. It turned out to be the emotional entity of the Central Administration Bureau. The judge warned him sternly, "Let me give you a piece of advice. If you dare to resist, you will be executed on the spot." Chen Lu turned pale at these words. Cowardly, he had no choice but to let the guards lead him to prison. The prosecutor looked at the judge with admiration. That was incredible. Even someone with a national-level emotional entity has to bow his head and plead guilty. The judge replied calmly, "That goes without saying." This is the central headquarters of the Emotional Administration Bureau, the highest authority on emotions in the Great Xia Kingdom. Don't even mention national level. Even if a global-level entity committed a crime here, they would still face judgment. The prosecutor asked happily, "The case is closed. When should we report this to Elder Shu?" The judge replied, "Wait a moment. Elder Shu is in a meeting." The prosecutor seemed to realize something. Could it be that... The judge interrupted, "Exactly. That is the Supreme Emotional Power Conference of the Great Xia Kingdom, a weekly summit that decides the fate of all emotional entities. Within the Great Xia Kingdom, at the round table, high-ranking officials were in a heated discussion. The incident in Donghai City had caused quite a stir. If the dispute remains unresolved, then let's move on to the next topic first. How do you all propose we deal with these three? They're so young. Are they really patients? These three. Are they not even qualified to appear at this conference? Regardless, it involves the attack on Hospital Number 2, so it should still be discussed. Someone spoke up to nominate them. According to the reports, these three individuals made significant contributions to the situation. I propose awarding them the bronze medal. In addition, we should provide them with some emotional resources. Shuming spoke up, adding, "How about we include them in the training program at the Donghai City Administration Bureau?" Shuming, the mediator, stood on neutral ground. "I have no objections." Duansun followed up, "Me neither." Gishojai sat there in deep thought before speaking. "Old Lei, what do you think?" Lijah remained silent, offering no answer. Suddenly, he burst into loud laughter right in the middle of the important meeting. Shuming asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong with my proposal?" Lijah laughed hysterically and said sarcastically, "It seems you bureaucrats have no idea what's really happening on the ground. Let me give you the specifics." He analyzed them one by one. Chenchu's ability is calculated as luck, while Zhang Jiaqi's ability is the power to view the specific intelligence scenes she wants to see. And finally, there's this Changmo. I suspect his power might be related to the shackles of suppression. Upon hearing this, Shuming realized, in that case, it seems all three of them are truly talented, especially Changmo, if that's the case. Why not send him directly to the Central Research Institute for further training to maximize their utility? Leiza interjected, a bit frustrated. Let me finish explaining their background first. Zhang Jiaqi's background is very clean. Her family is ordinary, nothing special. He continued his analysis, but things start to get problematic with Chenchu. Chenchu is not from Great Xia. He seemed to just appear out of nowhere in Donghai City, happened to be discovered by a passerby, and was sent to the psychiatric hospital. Lei Zhao turned his attention to the main character. This Changmo is even more extraordinary. There must be a global-level entity behind him, and I suspect it's no ordinary global-level one. This kind of global-level emotion is likely the same as Changmo's. In other words, a type of global-level entity never before discovered. Lei Zhao recounted the entire story. He entered Hospital Number 2 for treatment, which was clearly operated by a global-level organization. Just 2 days after he arrived, the hospital was attacked. You tell me, can you really believe in such a coincidence? Furthermore, what you call his contribution, was it really such a massive achievement? The Black Lotus sect still killed the old director. He only managed to save a few patients. It had absolutely no impact on the overall situation. Shuming hesitated and asked, "So what you're saying is..." Liaja slammed his hand on the table. "Exactly, that is exactly what I mean," he declared firmly. "I suspect he is an undercover agent sent by the Black Lotus sect, attempting to infiltrate our Emotional Administration Bureau. Therefore, I propose we arrest him immediately." The scene shifts to the #1 psychiatric hospital in Donghai City, where Changmo asks curiously, Have you remembered yet? Back then, why did you start the Black Lotus cult, and why did you destroy Donghai City? Yali idly stroked a strand of her hair and replied, completely indifferent, I don't remember a thing. Thuongmak recalled the scene where Zhao Yan grabbed him by the throat, demanding to know where Yali was hiding. He spoke with a hint of playfulness. Well, it seems sect leader Zhao really misses you. Luk burst into laughter upon hearing that. He's just afraid, that's all. Thuongmak asked suspiciously. Is that so? Did that cultist piece of trash recognize your power back then too? Ali recounted, probably. More than 15 years ago, he was just a child. Then he became consumed by hatred, standing on the brink of losing control. Who would have thought he'd turn out like this 15 years later? Hearing this, Thuongmak shot her a look of disbelief. Ali hurriedly reassured him, Don't look at me with those suspicious eyes. We're on the same side. Thuongmak retorted bluntly, associating with a villain like you who knows when you'll betray me. But Yali insisted, Not at all. You can rest easy. She quickly changed the subject. Anyway, I just remembered another important issue. Ali's voice turned serious and tense. Should we run away and save our own skins right now? That morning at hospital number 2, Thuongmak sat on his bed while Yali discussed, Should we figure out a way to escape? I was surprised by her words. Ali began to recount the past. I remember the initial reason I came to hospital number 2 was because of the former director. I believe I had some interactions with her. Knowing her character, given your condition, if you came to hospital number 2, the old director would have definitely done everything in her power to ensure your safety. But she's dead now. I can't trust anyone else. Besides, no one can be certain how the higher-ups in the Great Xia government will treat you now. So it's best to slip away first. Hearing this, Thuongmak fell into deep thought. That old lady, she tried her best to take care of me. Was she really that good? Thinking this, he spoke up. The problem is we can't defect to the Great Xia government. Then where can we go? Ali pondered and said, What about the Black Lotus cult? Even though Xiaoyan is the sect leader now, there must still be a number of moles within the cult willing to follow me and die for me. Thuongmak thought that sounded completely untrustworthy. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. He got out of bed to open it, and standing before him was Kinga. Thuongmak greeted her, Dr. Liu. She smiled gently and asked, How are you feeling? A moment later, Kingi entered the room. As she prepared warm water, she spoke, I really didn't expect it. At the time, I thought you were just average, but I never thought you'd be able to save so many people this time. On behalf of hospital number 2, I thank you. Thuongmak replied, Doctor, you're being too formal. I didn't expect to be able to do it either. After pouring the hot water, Kinga suddenly pulled her hand back. Right then, the atmosphere in the room turned gloomy. Chinka asked, What exactly happened on the Sea Emperor? And what about the world-class emotional entity behind you? Hearing that question, Thuongmak's face hardened instantly. Before he could speak, Kingi grabbed him by the throat. She slowly lifted his entire body, gritting her teeth in annoyance as she demanded, What, you think no one knows? You're underestimating the Great Xia intelligence network too much. Tell me, where is the world-class entity backing you? Her face looked unnatural, her eyes turning a deep red unlike before. Thuongmak gritted his teeth, struggling to breathe, and clutched her wrists. In his heart, he asked, Yali, what should I do? Should I confess about you? She immediately refused. No, absolutely not. You just need to make an excuse and say you don't know. Thuongmak still didn't understand. What's wrong with confessing? I'm innocent anyway. Alec explained with the grave expression, Thuongmak, if you die, I die too. Don't forget, I was once a cult leader who planned to destroy Donghai City. If they find out about my existence, do you think they'll spare you? Thuongmak fell silent, reflecting as he returned to reality. He was still being held by the throat. Having figured out what to say, he spoke, Dr. Liu. He then acted confused. What is a world-class entity? For a split second, Kinga's eyes returned to normal, widening in surprise before they quickly turned red again, this time with even more fury. She pinned him down and thrust a blade deep into his shoulder. Thuongmak kept up his act. Kinge loudly recounted everything that happened after he killed Liu Jia. You fought a world-class entity on the Sea Emperor. There were many emotional entities on that ship. Do you really think you can hide this from everyone? Kinga was losing her patience. She raised her voice. Tell me, where is the world-class entity behind you? In his mind, Yahello was cheering him on. Stay strong, she's probably just trying to scare you. Thuong Mak already knew this. Don't worry, I know. He then said, I've always thought what happened on the Sea Emperor was just a dream. I woke up on the beach and came straight to hospital number 2. Refusing to listen, King Ga quickly withdrew the blade and stabbed his other shoulder, screaming, You're lying! She wasn't easily fooled, adding, From the beach to hospital number 2, did you walk all the way here? That's over 30 kilometers away. Plus, there isn't a single camera in all of Donghai City that caught you. What exactly are you trying to hide? Thuong Mak kept his composure and replied, I don't know. I completely lost my mind at that moment, but it felt like a voice was telling me which way to go. Thanka's face twisted with disappointment. She started speaking again. Do you have any idea? The very day you were hospitalized, the Emotion Management Bureau came to demand custody of you. Thanka revealed everything. How the director had done everything in her power to keep you. She didn't want you to go astray. Thuong Mak's eyes widened in shock. She began to summon her weapon. The director really protected the wrong person. You're a mole for the Black Lotus sect. You're the one who helped the Black Lotus sect raid hospital number 2, and you're the one who helped them kill the director. You deserve to die. Thanka gripped her scythe, raised it high, preparing to strike, but then she decided to lower it. Luckily, Thuong Mak slid out of her attack range. He jumped up and retreated, thinking to himself, She really wants to kill me. She's completely consumed by her emotions. Dalai also felt anxious and warned, Be careful. This doctor is much stronger than anyone you've faced before. They're all much stronger. I have to restore her sanity. After a moment of thought, Thuong Mak whispered, I'll just have to bet everything on one move. Use the flames to block her vision, get close while she's distracted, and then force some sanity back into her head. Now is the time. Thinking this, he raised his hands, preparing to cast his spell. But for some reason, he couldn't summon the energy. The flames wouldn't ignite. Before Thuong Mak's eyes, he had only managed to summon a few drops of a strange liquid. And what was he releasing? Was it slime? Just then, Thanka swung her scythe toward him. He stared wide-eyed at the blade heading his way. Thuong Mak fell backward, and those liquid droplets floated in the air. Then the scythe struck where he had been, pulling a spray of liquid that looked just like blood. A puddle of red liquid stained the floor beneath him. Thanka panted heavily, slowly regaining her senses. She hadn't actually sliced Thuong Mak. She had slammed the scythe into the floor. The dark aura dissipated from Thanka's body. She knelt over him, while Thuong Mak had already managed to use his abilities to dispel the malevolent energy. As Thanka's sanity returned, the puddle of liquid slowly retracted, until it disappeared completely. Sweat beads still lingered on Thanka's face. What did you do to me? Thuong Mak observed her calmly and explained, I helped you regain your sanity. Thanka's face began to crumple. She suddenly burst into loud sobs, surprising Thuong Mak. Thanka stammered as she wiped away her tears. I'm sorry, I couldn't control my emotions. Honestly, I didn't want to kill you. I've betrayed the director's expectations. Thuong Mak lay there in silence. After a while, Thanka spoke to him. In truth, the higher-ups debated how to deal with you for a long time. Some argued that you were a spy and that you should be arrested, imprisoned, and interrogated immediately. Others didn't think so. At the very least, they thought we should observe you longer. In the end, the head of the Central Management Bureau decided to put you under my charge. Thuong Mak's wounds had already been carefully bandaged by her. Hearing this, he asked, The highest authority decided to protect me? Just for a nobody like me? Thanka adjusted her glasses and speculated, Maybe it has something to do with me? Either way, the final decision on how to handle you was left to me. She continued, Actually, before the director passed away, she specifically asked me to take good care of you. However, because intelligence reports strongly suggested you were a spy, I wanted to test you. I didn't expect that I'd almost kill you. My apologies. Having said that, Thanka cried again, I've failed the director. Thuong Mak kept a very calm expression. He replied, Doctor, let's just consider it a wash. That put her at ease, thank you. Anyway, my decision has been reported to my superiors, and the results will be here soon. There is also one more thing I need to tell you. Thanka began. I am being transferred to the task force of the Donghai City Emotion Management Bureau to investigate the raid on Hospital Number 2, Thuong Mak. You will also be joining the task force. Not just you, but Tu Jai, Tran, and Q will all be joining this team. She placed a hand on his shoulder. The Black Lotus sect, the mole inside the Donghai Emotion Management Bureau, and others hiding in the shadows. Thuong Mak, let's drag that lot out from behind the scenes and give those who lost their lives in this matter an answer. Meanwhile, in a certain house, someone approached, and the shadows of two others were visible inside. The man who had just walked in was an assassin. He held up some documents and announced, "Hey, we've got work to do." The person standing there, holding a phone, was Tran Chuan. He didn't pay much attention, continuing what he was doing. Now is the critical moment. The assassin paused. What is this before them? Over there was Professor Vuong, tied up in a helpless position. Tran Chuan replied, "It's incubating. I obviously know that. But I'm asking, how are we going to provoke him this time?" The assassin realized and said, "You mean this? This time I gave him a laxative. He won't be able to hold it much longer. And he's a university professor, too." As the professor began to struggle, "Damn it, let me go." Tran Chuan held up the phone. It was live streaming these images of Professor Vuong. The viewers immediately began mocking him in the comments. "Look, he can't hold it much longer. Isn't that Professor Vuong? Damn, this is intense." Tran Chuan went even further, informing him, "Professor Vuong, your students recognize you. Congratulations." What? This caused Professor Vuong to panic even more. "Damn it, let me go!" His face turned malicious. "You can't hold it? Perhaps your students will find out very soon. Not only that, your friends, family, and everyone you know will find out." Hearing this, Professor Vuong started to panic, begging, "Please let me go." Tran Chuan had no intention of letting him go, continuing, "A dignified professor, putting on a show of urinating in front of so many people on a live stream. What will everyone think of you?" He finally sneered with a hint of amusement. "You have no shame at all." Professor Vuong gritted his teeth, trying to hold it in, but he couldn't keep control anymore. "I really can't take it anymore." At that moment, the comment section exploded. "Open your eyes, Professor. That was a spectacular blast." As soon as he finished filming Professor Vuong's business, Tran Chuan immediately cut the live stream, leaving the viewers frustrated. What's going on? It was just getting to the good part. Why cut it off? Hai gave a signal. Done. As soon as the command was executed, the liquid mass engulfed Professor Vuong's head. Isn't this like molting? It kept growing larger and larger. Finally, it crushed his head. Once he was finished with him, Tran Chuan called out, "All right, speak." The assassin replied, "Good." He handed over a file containing photos of 3 people. These are the targets. It's best to keep them alive, but if there's no other way, dead is fine too. But you must bring back their emotional core. Tran Chuan took a quick look, assessing them with curiosity. Just some low-level street thugs, huh? Besides, this guy with the glasses is suspected to be city-level. The assassin replied, "That's correct. Furthermore, we suspect there are 2 world-level individuals protecting him." Tran Chuan was slightly surprised. 2 world-level protectors? That's a bit over the top, isn't it? "You want me to capture this guy alive?" The assassin replied. "The client has a very high profile. No one else but you can take this job." I thought it over for a moment. After considering it, he tossed the papers aside. Forget it. If there's no challenge, how am I supposed to prove how excellent I am? The first mental hospital of Donghai City isn't far from here. You will see their emotional cores very soon. Back at the second hospital, after the conversation, Than Ka opened the door and left. "All right, I'll go find Jai Ki and Tran Ku to explain the situation, then I'll come back to find you." The door slammed shut, leaving Thuong Mak all alone. He sat on the bed while Dayli stood there in silence. Finally, Thuong Mak raised his hand and summoned that same liquid again. Then why did my power turn into this? The liquid just kept wrapping around his hand. He couldn't release fire, and he couldn't solidify it either. The crystal was very soft, almost like jelly. Dayli stepped closer to observe, feeling puzzled as well. That's truly not right. It's normal for it to become soft, but why can't it harden? But after a moment of thought, she realized, I understand now. It turns out this body can turn soft like this too. Thuong Mak asked, confused, "What on earth are you talking about?" Dayli retorted, "What do you think I'm talking about?" He replied, "Nothing, never mind. Tell me, what is actually going on?" Dayli smiled slightly and explained, "Simply put, you're hungry." He was confused and repeated, "Hungry?" She laughed and analyzed it for him. An emotional subject also needs to eat. If you don't eat enough, How could you possibly harden? Thuongmak fell silent and after a while asked, "Don't you feel like you're a bit overexcited?" Daylight quickly replied, "Not at all." She began to explain, "All right, seriously speaking, as long as an emotional entity exists, it will constantly consume emotional energy even when not fighting, just like how humans need to eat every day. Moreover, the stronger the emotional entity, the more emotional energy it consumes daily. A person with a sturdy build eats more food every day than an average person. Furthermore, for you, the suppression chains of the second hospital were your source of emotional energy. During the final battle at the second hospital, you almost lost control. After absorbing a large amount of rational emotional energy, you eventually stabilized. Basically, it means you have fully leveled up. You have become a stronger emotional entity. Therefore, the amount of emotional energy consumed daily will naturally be even greater." Thuongmak listened and asked, "So all I need to do is eat? And if I also absorb emotional energy from the suppression chains, will my power return to normal?" Daylight replied, "That's the idea. But it won't be that easy to solve." He wondered, why? She analyzed further. In an era where rational energy is scarce, it's not easy to find, and your appetite now is on a completely different level compared to before. Previously, one chain, if you weren't fighting and were only maintaining normal activities, could last for 2 months. Now it might only last for 3 weeks. And what's more troublesome is, if you don't eat your fill for a long time, at best, you won't be able to unleash your full strength. In the worst-case scenario, your power will decline, you'll gradually lose your sense of self, and eventually, you'll dissipate into the world, just like me. Daylight then smiled brightly and replied with a question, "Thuongmak, have you forgotten? I ended up in this state exactly because I couldn't find enough emotional energy." Thuongmak sat there pondering her words, then he spoke up. "You've got to be kidding. If even you couldn't find enough rational energy, how am I supposed to?" Daylight explained further, "My appetite is even bigger, and on top of that, I'm dependent on you. At the very least, it ensures my memories won't be lost." Thuongmak then thought to himself, he hadn't expected that upgrading his emotional form would be this troublesome. The survival environment in this world is just too harsh. Daylight then continued, "If you aren't strong enough, you're surrounded by danger, and there's no way to guarantee your safety. But once you get stronger, you won't have enough emotional energy to sustain it, and you'll end up like me, starving to the point of fading away. It's a death sentence either way. It's basically a lose-lose situation. Forget it. The most urgent task right now is to recover my strength first." Suddenly, the silhouette of a girl appeared in the room, catching him off guard. She stepped out of the shadows and he noticed her aura. Thuongmak panicked. Black Lotus sect Daylight, this person didn't even wake me up, but even so. The girl suddenly did something that caught Thuongmak by surprise. She knelt on one knee, closed her eyes, bowed her head in submission, and politely greeted him. "Young master, I have come to receive you." This left him stunned for a moment. Thuongmak was still quite confused by the situation. He asked in bewilderment, "Young master?" She nodded to confirm. Suddenly, the girl pointed at Thuongmak, her expression changing as if she had just remembered something. The girl began searching for something on her person, stuttering, "That thing." After rummaging for a while, she still couldn't find it and anxiously leaned over to check her belongings. And the end result was her tripping on the spot under Thuongmak's confused gaze. But she slowly sat back up. After struggling to search, the girl finally presented a cute heart-shaped box. "Young master, this is a welcoming gift. It's a small pastry I made. I hope you like it." He accepted the gift without much reaction. Daylight was equally surprised. Thuongmak set it aside for the moment and turned back to ask, "What do you mean by calling me young master?" The girl replied, "It means becoming our sect leader. Before Elder Lu passed away, he relayed your message to everyone, that short, bald, nasty guy. He said you are our hope to erase all this hatred, the savior we have been waiting for. So I represent everyone who has come to find you. We hope you can lead us." Upon hearing this, Thuongmak thought to himself, so that guy really did recognize Daylight's power back then. But how did he send the intel? Could it be some special ability related to hatred? Daylight then said with a cheerful laugh, "I suppose he guessed that you are my successor. Looks like I told you I still had some followers." He asked, "How many people are there in this group you're talking about?" She began to recall. "After receiving Elder Lu's news, there are 4 of us on my side." Thuongmak couldn't help but wonder. Are there only 4 of you supporting me to become the leader of the Black Lotus sect? She smiled lightly without holding back. The 4 of us already control many of the disciples. He asked again, many or a few? What percentage? The girl calculated and replied, about 30%, I suppose. Hearing that, Thong Mak continued to ask, that's not much, is it? What about the other 70%? And there's your current leader, Chao Yan. He knows what you're doing, so he won't let you off the hook, right? Faced with these questions, she suddenly lowered her head. He continued, plus, why should I trust you? Isn't it possible your leader sent you here to deal with me? Both fell into silence until the girl spoke, tears falling. I've done so much. I took such a huge risk just to come here and find you. I even brought some homemade cookies. Do you know how long it took me to make them? She said in extreme sorrow. After all that, you still don't trust me? Seeing her suddenly turn so negative, he went, huh? Confused, he watched her eyes suddenly turn red as she brandished a weapon, leaped at him, and shouted, go to hell! Both Thong Mak and Dayli gritted their teeth, thinking, we're done for. Just as her weapon was inches away, he summoned the jelly-like liquid to blast toward her forehead. The weapon was only a few millimeters from his eyes, but luckily, Thong Mak's skill landed on her in time, and the stream of liquid touched the girl's head. She quickly regained her senses, gasping for air as she slowly backed away. The weapon in her hand dissolved, and her eyes turned strangely glossy. The girl, both relieved and emotional, hugged Thong Mak tightly and began to sob loudly, saying, it's been so long since I felt like this. No more hatred, no more bitterness toward anything. Elder Lu was right, young master. You truly are the one we've been waiting for. You are our savior. Thong Mak, meanwhile, was a bit incredulous. This was the second time today. Dayli also felt somewhat relieved. Almost capsized the boat in a gutter. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Than Ka was smiling as she led a group of people toward him. Let's go. Let's head back and find Thong Mak. Back in Thong Mak's room, the girl was still clinging to him, saying, young master, we truly want to find you. I know. Leader Zhe wants to deal with you. He wants to find the previous leader through you. Don't worry, we will definitely stand on your side. She added, you are still very weak right now. If you want to continue improving your strength, you'll need many resources. There are many things that are inconvenient for you to handle personally, and we can help you with those. We also have the Black Lotus sect's intelligence network. We've been infiltrating them for so many years, after all. They've even developed their own intelligence network. I'm begging you, lead us forward. Yahello happily agreed, saying she was right. If you rely only on yourself, you'll never become a powerhouse. Just agree with her. Thong Mak started thinking. It's true. Having a branch of power working for him would make things much easier. Plus, he could use them to handle Yahello's issues. The image of Than Ka losing her mind flashed in his head again. But if he were to get mixed up with people from the Black Lotus sect, and the doctor found out? He thought for a second and then realized something. He said to himself, no, I can't. The doctor will be back soon. I need to get her out of here immediately. Meanwhile, out in the hallway, Than Ka had led her people close to his room. Thong Mak grabbed the girl by the shoulders to tell her to leave first, but before he could finish, his pupils constricted in shock. She was bowing her head, solemnly offering him a crystal. Thong Mak stood there, stunned. It was as if this thing was instantly making every cell in his body crave it. That deep blue crystal. It was a source of rational emotion. The girl expressed her heart. Young master, you must be severely malnourished right now. We have plenty of reserves. You just need to become our leader, and all our resources will be yours. But Yahello quickly noticed something wrong. Look out. Thong Mak was pushed behind by the girl. Since when had Tran Chuan appeared with his weapon? The girl had taken the stab for him. Thong Mak turned his head immediately, wondering, there's another assassin? Just as Tran Chuan attacked him, she had rushed over to save him. The blade pierced right through her, spraying blood onto her face. Seeing he'd missed his target, Tran Chuan looked as annoyed as if he'd stepped in something gross. This situation left Thong Mak thinking, my strength hasn't recovered yet, and at a time like this, luckily Yahello shouted to help him realize the situation. Thong Mak, Dr. Lu is coming. I didn't hesitate for a single second and screamed, Dr. Lu, help me! The two of them were shocked by his shout. No sooner had he finished than Than Ka and several others appeared. Deep in her eyes there was a flash of fury. Seeing this, Thong Mak immediately ordered the girl, Go! Looking at her confused face. I had no choice but to repeat himself. That's an order. And that was the opening Tran Chuan needed to command countless tentacles to lunge at Thuong Mak, his blade slashing at his face in the blink of an eye. But before he could celebrate, Tran Chuan felt the full force of Than Ka's wrath. With just one swing, she completely destroyed the wall behind him. Yet, in the next heartbeat, he vanished completely from her sight. The situation left her restless. He disappeared. Even Thuong Mak couldn't wrap his head around it and turned to Yahello for help. "Yahello, what's going on?" She replied, "I'm watching." In that instant, she discovered a terrifying truth. His invisibility level is very high. He might be a special emotion type. I can't see him very clearly either. Even so, Aluk still tried to retrace what had just happened. After a moment, she suddenly looked to the side and shouted, "He's heading toward the area where Jiai Qi and Tran Ku are." Meanwhile, Jiai Qi was still completely oblivious. Not understanding what was happening, even Tran Ku was helpless and unaware. Tran Chuan had appeared behind them with a gleaming knife. At that moment, he only had one thought in his head: kill these two first. But just then, he accidentally tripped. Because he was holding her arm, they both tumbled to the ground and inadvertently dodged a fatal blow. Thinking they had eyes in the back of their heads, he was startled, panicked. Back in the present, Than Ka was charging toward them with her scythe. Tran Chuan was shocked by her speed. In the end, he had no choice but to pull a disappearing act. She was driven mad by the scene but couldn't do anything. He disappeared again, while Jai Kai asked, "Sister Lu, what are you doing?" Since she couldn't predict Tran Chuan's next move, Than Ka could only warn them, "Be careful. Someone is trying to kill everyone." Jai Kai was a bit shaken. "Are you serious?" In Than Ka's eyes now there was only boundless rage. Damn it! She had no idea where the enemy was or how high his stealth level really was. Does she have to release the emotional monster hiding in this area? But she had already protected the area around the two of them, so she was slightly less worried. "No, I can't. Doing that would pull these children into the monster's reach." And things were getting worse, as this could accidentally trigger them again. They had already experienced that once before. In such a short period of time, having to go through it again could lead to irreversible consequences. And it got even worse when she realized, plus, this is the hospital in the city center. There are too many ordinary people here. I absolutely must restrain my power. I can't let any civilians get hurt. At the same time, Thuong Mak was anxious and kept asking Yahello, "Can you see him?" "Hearing that," she replied helplessly. "It's very difficult, but I'm trying my best." While you were deep in conversation, Tran Chuan had already appeared behind you. He watched from above, exuding pure confidence. "You really think you can see me just based on the likes of you?" A thought immediately flashed through Tran Chuan's mind. "I'll take them all down right here, then just drag his body away." Yet, at that very moment, Jai Kai happened to spot him and cried out, "Sister Than Ka! There's someone stuck on the wall over there. That's so weird." Hearing this, Tran Chuan was so shocked his eyes went wide and his jaw dropped. Before he could even react, Than Ka lunged forward with her scythe. Luckily, Tran Chuan managed to jump backward just in time to dodge the blow. The next second, she swung her scythe again, delivering a lethal, critical strike. But when the smoke cleared, he was nowhere to be seen. Witnessing the scene, Jiai Qi panicked and shouted, "I can't see him. Is he dead?" "Over there." Than Ka thought for a moment before saying, "Probably not. We let him slip away. This place isn't safe anymore. Let's get out of here now." But that did little to calm Jiai Kai's growing anxiety. That's terrifying. He's not going to keep hiding, is he? Even Than Ka couldn't be sure about that. Not knowing for sure meant little Jiai Kai had to stay alert to everything around her. Only she could see him. Meanwhile, Thuong Mak stood in a corner, lost in thought. His hands suddenly clenched shut. He didn't know when he had grabbed a green stone with a note attached. It contained only a string of numbers and a brief instruction. "My phone number. Make sure to get in touch." The person who just fought Thuong Mak's group was none other than Tran Chuan, a Class A wanted criminal in the Great Ha Kingdom, guilty of murder and illegal imprisonment, torture, kidnapping, and the illegal use of emotional powers. He went by many aliases, and in reality, he hadn't just held one identity but had disguised himself many times over. Spirit Master, Mr. Yen, The Breach, some of his more straightforward monikers. However, the most notorious one would have to be the first assassin of the Great Ha Kingdom. Similar incidents had occurred before. He had even publicly and blatantly committed murder. I had kidnapped many officials and business people. Some of these cases even happened inside locked rooms surrounded by countless bodyguards, yet the victims would simply vanish into thin air. Even though the government tried its best, it seemed impossible to corner Tran Chuan. The Donghai City Emotional Management Bureau had once tried to capture him. Under the command of a world-class team, the entire pursuit force of the Bureau was mobilized. Even though they ambushed him, he still escaped without a scratch. Yet Thanka didn't seem to think much of Tran Chuan, even though he was a city-level emotional entity. Ji Kai, however, couldn't wrap her head around it. Sister Thanka, is a city-level entity really that dangerous? Instead of answering directly, she began to explain. Emotional entities are classified into 6 levels. The first, the lowest, is street level. That's the tier Ji Kai and Tran Q are currently at. Right after that is Thuong Mac's level. The second is district level, which is where Thuong Mac stands right now, and he reigns at a position much higher. The third is city level, which is Tran Chuan's rank, the #1 assassin of Great Ha. While this isn't exactly the highest, it's far from ordinary. Above that are provincial, national, and world level. In other words, even though Tran Chuan is technically 3 major levels weaker, I can still escape a world-class opponent unscathed. Only then did Gyaiki realize the person she had just faced was no small fry. The person who ambushed us was so powerful, so what kind of emotional entity is he exactly? But unfortunately, even Thanka didn't have the answer to that. No one knew what kind of emotional entity he truly was. In reality, when it comes to such unique emotional entities, their emotional type and energy output remain their greatest secrets. But she knew one thing for certain. Tran Chuan was extremely dangerous. However, we speculate that his emotional power effects are likely teleportation and stealth. Otherwise, there's no way to explain the things he has done. Daylai, who had been listening in, finally chimed in. The first assassin of the Great Ha Kingdom has some real skill. It caught him off guard. She knew his emotional entity type, but not for sure. It's hard to say, but for a city-level creature to escape from a world-class one is simply unbelievable. Actually, it's complicated, because a world-class user only needs to manifest their own emotional monster, and within that monster's coverage range, everything becomes clear, yet he still managed to escape. Perhaps only abilities like teleportation could explain it. Those words made Thuong Mac start to panic. Teleportation and stealth. This #1 assassin of the Great Ha Kingdom, he's truly cunning. While he was lost in thought, Thanka spoke up again. Being targeted by an emotional entity like that is a real headache. The opponent's goal doesn't seem to be just Thuong Mac. Even little Gyaiki and Tran Ku are his targets. So you absolutely cannot leave my side. That story from before caused his mind to constantly imagine horrifying scenarios. Sister Thanka, if he really has the ability to teleport and suddenly appears, slits my throat, and disappears, then what would you do? Maybe he's watching us right now, waiting for a chance to strike. That statement made Ji Kai tremble with fear. No way, Thuong Mac, don't doubt Sister Thanka's abilities. Yet Thanka insisted that, truth be told, Thuong Mac wasn't wrong. Up to this very moment, nothing is certain. I honestly can't guarantee your safety 100%, but I have kept my guard up this entire time, and strangely enough, that just makes Thanka's spirit burn even brighter. If that guy dares to lay a hand on you all, he'll have to pay for it with his own life. Hearing that, they were frozen with fear. But thankfully, Tran Q understood the situation and tried to reassure them. Don't worry. Besides, Jai Ki's power is the perfect counter to his, isn't it? You can still see him? That made Jai Kai suddenly recall. That's right. Earlier, when that assassin made his move, it was just pure luck that Tran Q stumbled and pulled me down with him. We are definitely going to be okay, but it still feels like there's a lot to worry about. Tran Q's optimistic emotional power is truly miraculous, but he's still just a pure entity of emotion. It isn't always going to turn a crisis into a lucky break. If we bet everything on luck, who knows? We might lose our heads next time. Those words made Jai Ki panic all over again. Is that really how it is? In just a short moment, they were out of the tunnel. It was still those same 4 people in the car, but this time, they were filled with resolve now that they were out in the open world. Instead of staying in the hospital, the 2 of them just looked at each other, unable to say a single word. Meanwhile, Koloi, sitting opposite, said casually, Captain Lau, say a few words. Let's welcome Captain Lau to oversee the operation. Following that, everyone applauded in unison. Seeing that, Thanka could only reply with some hesitation. Thank you, everyone. I'm a new member, and I don't know much about the situation here yet. But I am here on a mission. As you all know, Hospital Number 2 was attacked. I'm here to investigate that case, and I hope everyone will cooperate fully to bring the perpetrators to justice. Hearing those words, the old man shouted in frustration. Right, this whole thing is absolutely outrageous. These cultist fanatics. To think they dare to attack a state institution. They need to be punished. Captain Lau, just give the order, and we'll start the investigation immediately. We have to punish these bastards according to the law. But this made her feel quite uneasy. How should she put it? The current situation was just too unexpected. If she came right out and said they needed to investigate Director Cook, it would definitely cause problems. Plus, there's a chance some of these people are in league with Director Cook. But regardless, I need to test their reactions first. After a moment of thought, Thanka found the right way to put it. All right. We've already made a breakthrough. Tranchuan is known as the top assassin in the Daiha Nation. I is targeting Thongmak, Truongjaikai, and Trankyu. I suspect this is definitely connected to the incident at Hospital Number 2. She was doing all of this just to protect them, because they had played a key role in the events at the hospital. To some extent, they had interfered with the enemy's mission, so it's very likely that Tranchuan was hired by the Black Lotus sect to assassinate them. We need to capture Tranchuan, and then, through Tranchuan, uncover the Black Lotus sect behind him. The more Thanka thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She might even end up exposing Cook Duingen and the people pulling his strings.